The idiot Lord marries 5 beautiful goddesses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 524, Preparations to Attack. Alex. After the government meeting was over, a voice calling out his name echoed in Alex's voice as he walked out of the meeting room. When Alex turned to the side where the voice came from, Sean, who was walking towards him, caught his attention. "Could you give me some time?" Sean asked with a solemn expression. "But we agreed to meet tomorrow. Why are you suddenly in such a hurry?" "You don't know." Sean stared at Alex. Alex cringes, pretending not to know what happened. Sean walked forward, followed by Alex, while dozens of knights followed them, keeping some distance between them. After the meeting was over, the noble who wanted to meet with Alex flinched as he received the fierce glares of the soldiers. Sean ordered his men to stop anyone who approached them, no matter the reason. After they walked out of the people's palace, the people around them thinned out as Sean approached the carriage. "Do you mind if we visit my palace?" Alex shrugged and climbed into the carriage. "Honestly, do you know what you're doing?" Sean asked. "Why?" Sean was about to speak but stopped midway. "Let's talk about this alone. By the way, is my sister-in-law in the palace?" "Yes." "That's great. I'll finally get to meet her." Alex laughed, wondering about Sean's daughter and his niece. Thinking about a cute little boy, Alex felt a little out of place as he had become an uncle, which made him remember his uncle who treated him very well. Sadly, he passed away at the age of 40. "We're here." Alex looked at the rows of people standing near the doors to welcome him. As the carriage stopped, Alex saw a beautiful black-haired lady with a child in her arms. As Alex turned his head towards her, he could see the various emotions reflected in her. Surprise, worry, fear, and motherly love. "Tisk." Alex clicked his tongue as he moved towards her, which startled Sean. "Sister-in-law, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you. I can tell that Brother Sean isn't taking proper care of you and you've lost a lot of weight." "Brother Sean, tell me the truth. Did you mistreat her?" "What the fuck are you saying? She's the apple of my eye," Sean said with a frown, trying to deny the accusation. "Sister-in-law, you had no reason to be afraid of her. I swear that I will take care of all your grievances. You may not know it, but I am the only one capable of ending them with a single hand." Sean's scales went numb and his lips twitched. "Brother, you already have 5 devastating weapons. Why are you trying to start a fire between a lovely couple like a jealous bachelor?" PFFT. Seeing Alex and Sean arguing, Helen burst out laughing. "Brother-in-law, there's nothing like that. He treats me and my daughter very well. I'm lucky to have a husband like him," Helen said with a soft smile. "Let me take a look at my niece." Alex raised his arms and held the baby in his arms. She had beautiful golden hair like them, and seeing Alex smile, a beautiful smile formed on her lips. "She seems to like you. What's her name?" "Ellen. Ellen von Stan," Helen replied. "What a nice name." Alex handed his lovely niece back to him, and after exchanging a few pleasant words, Sean led him to his room to chat about a very serious topic. After taking a seat, Sean leaned forward. "Alex, did you take into account that I'm the commander in the northern region when you decided to accept Father's proposal?" "No, I didn't think too much. I agreed because I believe in myself. Besides, I have to go there." The northern part had been infested by miasma. Everything there would serve as nutrients to boost Alex's growth. "Listen, Alex, we're maintaining a delicate balance between demons and elves. If this breaks, a war will break out." Alex pondered for a moment and asked, "What are they waiting for?" "The fall of the elves. The dark elves have managed to bypass the elves' barrier and have corrupted the world tree. The elves are trying their best to prevent the world tree from withering. If the world tree were to disappear, the elves would lose much of their power, and the moment that happened, they would be devoured by demons and dark elves. In the worst-case scenarios, the elves might be forced to become dark elves to protect their lives, and then the next number would be Kinley." "It's alarming," Alex muttered. "Have they tried their best?" "Yes, they even asked the saint to take a look." The saint tried to purify the world tree. However, all she could do was delay the inevitable. Alex didn't know what method the other side used, but if it's like the seed of darkness, it means it can't be purified. It's like a parasite that will eat you from the inside until you find a way to get rid of it. However, even though everything seems peaceful, there have been many problems. We've been informed that many of our soldiers go missing from time to time. It's not a big deal if this happens once, but if it continues, we'll suffer a great loss. Unlike them, we wouldn't be able to search their territories without proper preparation due to the miasma. Do you understand? Yes, that's where I came to play. I can enter their territory and have a little fun, which might deter them. It'll serve as a warning to them. Sean nodded. My father had a knack for seeing things from afar. I wish he would take care of administration instead of locking himself in his room. An old man like him needs to rest, Alex said. That's why I wanted to free him as soon as possible. By the way, I wanted to ask for your help. What are you going to do now? I'll tell you after I meet Ivine and Shyan. Sean was startled and asked Alex what she meant, but Alex simply sat there with an insidious smile. In one of the palaces. What are you thinking about this time? Ivine muttered with a dazed expression. He's going to die there. Why are you so worried? Shyan complained. I haven't seen any movement on his part. He visited Sean yesterday and so far everything is quiet. As his doubt deepened, a servant's voice was heard from outside. Your Highness, we have a guest. Guests? Who? This Prince Alex. Ivine's eyes widened. Ivine's expressions were distorted and she tried to hold back her urge to kick Alex out. Cyan, yes, sister, leave. What? Why? Let me handle this. You're too immature, Shyan complained and left reluctantly. Tell him to come in. Contrary to his surprised expression, Ivine spoke calmly as she sat down on the chair and crossed her legs. Slowly the door opened and Alex walked in. She didn't understand how a person's mood could change so much. If you ask me for something to drink, you can give me tea or coffee, but make it very sweet. As soon as he sat down, Ivine looked at him in bewilderment and gestured for her servant to do as she asked and spoke to Alex. We don't have any affection for each other, so let's get straight to the point. Why are you here? Alex scanned the surroundings and replied. Sounds good to me. After that Alex looked into her eyes and spoke. I'm going to beat up Hex, a calm tone, as if she was going out for an afternoon walk. Ivine was speechless for a moment and asked again. Excuse me? Beat up means, do you want to become my ally to deal with him? Yes, I want your help to kill him. Ivine coughed and gave Alex an absurd look. Have you gone mad? Your words don't make any sense. Look, you know that Hex is the biggest contender after me. I'll go to the northern region and Sean might accompany me there and who knows what will happen. So, if we deal with Hex now, won't you be the one who will get the most out of this? Ha ha ha! A loud laugh burst out from his mouth. After laughing for a moment, he looked at Alex quietly. If this is a joke, it was quite funny. If you're serious, then tell me, why do I have to lend my powers to you, who could take care of Hex alone? Am I not taking a huge risk? What would I gain? In his eyes, a cold aura erupted, however, it was suppressed as soon as he met Alex. What? Ivine felt an instinctive fear towards the black stars in Alex's eyes. You don't have to go out alone. You just have to lend me Razorford's body, Alex muttered softly as if Ivine had already agreed. Let me ask you one last thing. Why do you want to hide him? A question came from his lips. Because I hate him the most, only for this reason, Ivine said curiously. And because he's involved in something taboo that will tarnish the name of the royal family, Alex stood up from his seat with a smile. Also, hasn't your family been attacked by the Hex Magic Corps before? Then this isn't enough. There was no need to list all the other reasons. Because he knew. This was enough, because for a greedy person like her, she needed to take the bait to succeed. Chapter 525, The Royal Hunt. I didn't know you were going to do something so big. Inside the study room of her house, Second Princess Ivine muttered. I thought you were just going to make a surprise attack. There was deep surprise in her eyes. A competitive battle between royal families for the succession of the throne was quite common. This has been constantly happening since the first emperor, but most of it happens in the dark. Even if it caused direct harm to other members of the royal family, it was almost like poisoning or assassinating them or sending a detached court to secretly kill. Therefore, it was very rare for someone to wage an all-out war against another, unless there was a rebellion. The Crown Prince matter had just started and you wanted to clean it all up. There was no need to agree to his request, especially from someone who had been a thorn in her eyes, but she agreed to it for two reasons. One was to eliminate Hex, who was a strong contender for the throne. The second was to keep an eye on Alex. She lent them her soldiers, but they were the weakest of the group, led by a few stronger ones. Their job was to observe the details of the battle and let Alex and Hex attack them. If the winner came out in bad shape, she would be attacked immediately, killing two birds with one stone. However, She felt that Alex was after something more. Alex's profound boldness was enough to give her goosebumps. It may seem unconventional, but I've already taken enough measures to deal with the consequences. If I think about it carefully, there's no better opportunity than this. After finishing his thoughts, he looked out the window. Has it already started? At the end of the basement hallway of the second prince's mansion, there was a room blocked by a huge iron door. A place that not even the help of the Hex, who manages the human experiments in the basement, has ever been to. Only Hex could enter here, and even curiosity about the beings beyond the door was unacceptable. Hex opens the door and enters without hesitation. Along with it, a massive amount of magic power began to pour into him as if crushing his entire body. Harmony, you're here? Hex frowned as he leaned into the darkness of the room where he couldn't see a single thing. Of course, where can I go with this battered body? In the darkness, Hex walked towards a cheerful voice. He looked human save for his snake-like eyes and tough reddish-black skin. Hex accepted Harmon's offer and helped in his indiscriminate experiments. However, he didn't dare to take the final step until now. The only reason he accepted the offer was to get as much help as possible and do the dirty work without getting his hands dirty. More than that, he also had a sadistic side and enjoyed performing the experiments. But he hadn't taken the final step to becoming a monster. However, his battle with Alex finally pushed him over the edge. You made me do this, Alex. You made me. You could have lived happily in your little kingdom, but now you wanted to play big. Harmon snapped his finger and asked, how are the preparations for your adventure to the north going? I don't know much, but I sent people to keep watch. Harmon contacted your organization and asked you to take care of him. If he were to become emperor, you might suffer more than you think. Ha ha ha. Harmon laughed a little. What can he do? Our organization is quite wide and is deeply rooted in this world. Hex gave a skeptical look and asked, didn't they flee here after their bases were destroyed? Harmon's expression was distorted and he spoke angrily. That was the work of Osborne and his magic tower. Unfortunately, we were discovered by one of his employees and he reversed the traces of our bases and destroyed them. Hex frowned as this was not good news for him because he had his members in the magic tower. It will be fixed soon. Once we finish this, I will have the power to perfectly crush Alex. I can kill him. Harmon, who was making an exaggerated gesture as he looked at Hex's shining eyes, spoke with an incomprehensible smile. But you must be careful. His Majesty Alex does not seem to be what he seems and the rumors about him are quite unusual. It doesn't matter. Even if he becomes 10 times stronger, a worm will always be a worm and we have already made enough preparations. Now all that remains is to watch Alex writhing like a worm beneath his feet. You will not die an easy death. I will take you to the point where you will no longer be able to escape, and then you will fall into complete despair. Hex's eyes sparkled with glee as he watched Harmon's lips curl upwards. The more a person loses themselves in emotions, the easier it is for them to lose their minds and become easier to manipulate. Let's begin. Hex nodded and sat down, letting the magical energy pour over him. Why is the moon red? The people of this world don't know the phenomena of eclipses and astronomy. So when the moon turns red, people scare their children. Child, sleep tight. Today is the day death will begin its hunt for evil souls. Alex chuckled as he recalled this story he heard quite some time ago. What an absurd story. Alex's eyes stared at the red moon that shone beautifully in the darkness of light. Alex. Mr. Alex. At that moment Sean and Mag silently approached Alex, who was looking at the moon outside the small garden of his palace. We are ready, said Mag. No other words were needed for this. Everything else was already perfectly prepared and only the key was missing to set everything in motion. Now Mag said that the key was ready. After that, Alex slowly turned around and looked at Mag. There was no doubt in Mag's eyes, unlike before. All that existed in those eyes was reverence and loyalty towards Alex. A look that could be seen on a fanatic's face. Receiving respect from the half-holy realm powerhouse made him a little embarrassed. Ridia called him uncle, and Mag, who was half a step into the holy realm, didn't cross the border just to accompany Ridia. Uncle Mag, please take care of Sean, don't worry about me. I don't need any protection, Sean rebutted, but he was forced to agree. And make sure no one escapes, our troops have already surrounded the place. Alex nodded. He decided to kill Hex slowly and steadily, but his thoughts changed as soon as Hamron appeared, and Alex, through his tracking skills, could sense an ominous aura around there. It seems Hex was trying to gain power through forbidden means, and who knows how much stronger he would become. It's best not to take any risks and cut off the sprout before it fully grows. So, let's finish this and get rid of the stain on Stan's family. After finishing those words, an ominous darkness falls on a long shadow behind Alex, who leaves the garden slowly and walks through the Imperial Castle. It was as if the darkness was drawn to him. Those who have appeared from somewhere begin to silently follow Alex as he walks. Dozens to hundreds. Hundreds of individuals gathered in an instant and formed bodies one after another. Alex felt a body being fully formed and looked at the moon in the sky once again. A full moon with a bright red color. Tonight, the red moonlight seems to shine brighter and stronger. Meanwhile, the black starlight began to slowly swirl in Alex's eyes. The time has finally come to begin his first real hunt. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Imperial Castle, a man with his arms crossed behind his back was standing near the window and frowning. "Do we need to do something?" asked another man standing beside him. "There's no need. It seems he had decided to court death. Since he wants to die, let him die." Chapter 526, Royal Hunt 2. It is assumed that some time ago, when Alex went on a rampage, he killed many of the Hex's key forces, causing them to be in a situation close to annihilation. Many were carrying out missions outside the capital and were lucky enough to escape the disaster. However, due to the urgency, everyone was asked to return as soon as possible to make up the numbers. In the mage squads, those who were from the magic tower were suspended for an indefinite period, which was very difficult for them to accept. They thought that if they were caught, they would be punished or expelled, but the suspension was completely meaningless, and furthermore, their status was no longer the same. "Why do I have to go through all this?" the guards standing at the main entrance complained. Among them, an angry voice resounded from the person standing on the left. "Even if many were to die, shouldn't the gate be guarded by lower-ranking knights?" "Don't complain," Bert spoke with a glare. "We're lucky to be alive right now. If given the chance, I'd rather provoke a demon than that madman who can't be reasoned with. Haha, but it's still too much." SHHH. "Quiet, EHH." A questionable voice came from Tom, who was looking ahead. "Look over there." "What's that?" Everyone turned their gaze to the spot where Tom's finger was pointing and fell into doubt. A person was walking towards them wearing a dark cloak that stirred the depths of their hearts. A darkness deeper than night spread around that person, which seemed to dye the surroundings even blacker as it cut off the light from nearby places. But that wasn't what surprised them. Hundreds of footprints followed the dark figure. Usually, corps or legions consisted of 10,000 soldiers, but they felt as if they could feel the suffocation of an entire army before them. It was a rare sight even in Zenith. The problem was that the group of corps was approaching them with unknown intentions. "Please retreat, it's Sekko's residence." Boom. Bert's lips, which were about to shout, stopped. Bert's body fell to the ground. Soon after, Tom and everyone's eyes widened in astonishment, and he began to see the figures of people approaching him from the front. He tried to ring the warning bell. But before he could do that, just like Bert, Tom and everyone's heads disappeared in an instant. Alex looked at the corpses lying on the ground with a bored look and turned his head towards the mansion. Alex raised his eyebrows as he felt a surge of magical energy deep within the place. He had brought the elite members of the League of Shadows while Sean brought his best soldiers. Although the soldier body he obtained from Ivine was inferior to theirs, he didn't care. He just needed the participation to prove the point and get a justification to kill Hex. "Listen, from now on, I want everyone in this place killed. There shouldn't be any survivors today. I don't care if they beg or give useless reasons like they have a pregnant wife at home or sick children or parents. No matter what, kill them. If they had someone to love, they wouldn't have committed such atrocities." Sean's body shuddered as he heard Alex's tone. "Come in now." The moment a murmur escaped Alex's lips. Boom. With a roar, the front door of the place was smashed into pieces and many figures flashed past it like lightning. About halfway through the massive hall that continued all the way to the entrance, roars could be heard. "It's an attack. We're under attack." Several knights and mages rushed out from inside as they heard loud noises. Perhaps they didn't know that they would be attacked within the capital, or that someone would be so haughty as to get involved in a war in the middle of the city, so they were shocked beyond their wildest dreams. "How dare you attack the castle where His Highness Hex resides?" The escort knights of the Second Prince's mansion rushed towards Alex with the leader Naaman. The moment the said knights were about to approach Alex, they were hit by slashes that pushed them back. "Clear everything in the path before Alex." Sean, who was right behind Alex, spoke in a cold voice. Sean's body finally began to move. Countless attacks seemed to be summoned in an instant and fired at the rushing knights. Ouch! The enemy knights were unable to block the attacks properly. The knights following Sean were the best of the best who had experienced countless fights on the battlefield. If it weren't for the traitor, Sean's army was considered unmatched on the battlefield. That was why there was no way the knights guarding the entrance could stop him. The eyes of the mage watching from behind widened upon seeing such a fierce attack. They summoned barriers to protect the knights and help them catch their breath. However, the mages gathered in the hall were immediately annihilated by Alex's squad, who snuck in and slaughtered them when they lost their guards. Alex called for everyone to back off and raised his hand. Not only did I dare to enter your highness's esteemed palace, I even dared to kill your esteemed prince. A black ball of energy began to condense and then, swish, a dark beam shot out and pierced through everything. Everything before Alex was swept away by a dark, gushing energy. Mythic rank knights were considered the ultimate power, yet they were staggering like a dry twig in the storm. Alex's figure blurred before everyone's shocked gaze and appeared on the third floor, in the Hex dormitory. Alex released his aura, destroying everything around him except for a secret door behind the bookshelves that led to the basement. Hex came out. Your precious little brother brought death with you. A gloomy silence lasted for a moment, followed by a loud explosion. Shit. You're the one who's going to be killed. Alex saw a figure rise into the sky and his lips curved upwards with a sinister expression. I hope you've prepared well enough to entertain me. Chapter 527, Royal Hunt 3. An enormous power descended upon everyone. An instinctive fear arose in everyone's hearts, making them feel like ants before it. Alex laughed at the power emanating from it and began to walk slowly, as if the pressure meant nothing. God blessed you with such a good face so that you can woo any girl you like, however, you just have to turn into that ugly bastard. Contrary to what Alex expected, Hex seemed rather calm at his provocative words. What's the use of the face if I didn't get the girl I liked? You took it from her. In my defense, the one who gave me Christina was the father. It seems that he knew of the filthy scum hiding behind the eloquent mask, who would give such a beautiful lady to a sinister and filthy beast like you. Alex spoke with an indifferent expression. Huh. I didn't care. You were nothing more than an insect that I didn't even dare to look at, and I thought that it would be easy to get rid of you once I achieved my goals. In fact, it was a wish I harbored from the very beginning. As long as I could become an emperor, I was certain that I would succeed, so I spared your worthless life. However, and as I thought, flies sure are annoying. Even if you spare them, they'll still fly around you and bother you. There was nothing wrong with leaving him alone, but he became a bothersome existence when left alone. I recognize you, Alex, then I will kill you with all my might. This mana-like sea surged out from Hex with exceptionally dense magic that began to take over the surroundings. The enemy castle shook and began to crumble. The surrounding objects fluttered into the sky, and deep cracks appeared on the ground. It's the same with me. Let's end this farce today. In an instant, Alex's right hand was enveloped in darkness, and, catching the dawn of annihilation, he waved it. The night sky and the space around Hex were cut apart. Before Hex could react properly, he was hit by a mysterious force, so he had to rely on the barrier to survive. Hex's body shot into the sky due to the impact. Hex needed to secure the space as soon as the battle began. No matter how well he prepared for close combat, as a mage he had no choice but to fight while maintaining a proper distance. Alex knew that Hex no longer cared about the surroundings, but he did. The barrier he created can't keep them in the limited space, so with his first move he propels it above the atmosphere. A dark figure rose into the sky. 2 chimera wings sprouted from his back. In the middle of his chest, a deep red gem was embedded within which something seemed to be burning that seemed to provide Hex with an endless supply of energy. Hex focused on the darkness covering Alex's body and the black sword in his hand. Dozens of beads of light formed around Hex and shot towards Alex. The beads of light seemed to slowly devour the space around them. Alex didn't let his guard down and looked at the beads of light approaching him, unsheathing his sword horizontally. Whistle. The droplets of light caught in the black line that appeared along the trajectory ceased to exist as if they hadn't existed in the first place. Alex broke through as if he was waiting for it and rushed towards Hex. Boom. 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 A huge sonic boom blasted one fade into the other as Alex moved like lightning. The darkness surrounding him amplified and burned around him with unstoppable force. Hex was now on a completely different level from the enemy he had faced. His power might be unstable, but he was now almost as strong as an overlord. Saving energy in front of him was suicidal. Just as Alex appeared before Hex, Hex extended his hand. Boom. Hex's powerful magic erupted and instantly fixed Alex's body in place. A high level of magic interfered with space itself. Dozens of light portals appeared from which projectiles shot out towards Alex, who was fixed in space. Your fighting style is quite simplistic. The level of power in each of them was enough to turn a supreme ranker into dust. The moment the projectiles were about to swallow Alex. "You underestimate others too much," Alex shouted with a smile that resonated, and his sword let out a huge wave of eerie darkness that covered the space around him. The hex magic that was poured onto Alex touched the darkness and disappeared from the world as if it had never existed. Hex's eyes trembled at the strange sight he had never heard of before. Even if he saw it before his eyes, he wouldn't be able to understand the underlying principle. Before Hex could react, Alex swung his sword. Black lightning blasted towards Hex and had been greatly amplified. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by a crack in space. As if space had been cut, Hex felt his body being squeezed and twisted beyond his understanding. Hex can't ignore the power he creates, and the shields surrounding him help protect him. "You!" Hex cursed as his solid defenses shattered. As a result, the black sword light created by Alex swept through space. Alex's heart was beating like crazy and amplifying the dark mana within his core pushed to the maximum instantly. A massive sword arc cuts across the sky, leaving behind shadows and shattering the gaps on the horizon. Wherever the bow passed, the moonlight and other lights in the area were devoured, causing the places to fall into total darkness for a few moments. Didn't you use all your strength when you fought those Supremas?" Hex muttered in surprise after emerging alive from the sword attack. However, his condition was much worse. One of his wings had been cut off and blood was pouring from his eyes, and the gems embedded in his chest were cracked, emitting a rich energy. It was unbelievable and unexpected for him to reach such a state with just one movement. "This isn't enough," Hex shouted at the top of his lungs. His oars swept away the clouds surrounding them. He couldn't accept this. There's no way this could be true. Unable to believe his defeat, he resorted to the last means he had. He took out a dark pill and placed it in his mouth. Boom! His energy surged again and darkness erupted from within, transforming his body into something filthy and disgusting. Alex's eyebrows twitched as he readied his sword. "You've now become a puppet of that organization, you. I hope this guy handled things appropriately." With a burst of darkness, Hex's magic began to change completely. The ripples in space caused fluctuations to spread throughout the kingly. If the battle hadn't been fought in the sky, no one knows how much devastation could have been caused. Alice, who walked out of the dormitory, looked up at the sky with a solemn expression. She didn't know why, but she felt a bad feeling. "I hope my brother isn't the cause of all this," she muttered in her heart. However, thinking about it, she pondered for a moment and widened her eyes, because today her brother was going to attack her second brother. "Brother Alex. Don't tell me. Huh? Why do you have to make so much noise when you make a move? I should go back to the palace and burn some incense for him," Alice muttered as she knew what was going to happen tomorrow. Chapter 528, Trampling on His Pride. "What could be going on there?" Yvonne muttered. Yvonne and others were on the terrace as they tried to get a glimpse of the battle. Alex had used some kind of magic technique to cut off the outside interference. "I can't even sense a ripple," Yvonne muttered with a sullen expression and looked at the others. "Me too," Christina shrugged. She was eager to watch the fight and even asked Alex to bring her along. However, no matter how much she begged, Alex didn't bring her to the fight, saying that it was a battle between two men to settle their matter. "I should be the last one you should ask," Catherine said matter-of-factly. "What about, I can't?" Athena interrupted her halfway. "I know you're thinking that we can perceive because we're born special, and yes, you're right. However, the barrier isn't a magic spell, rather it made use of its dark power, so no matter how hard we try, we can't see it. And yeah, if you care too much about him, it would be better to talk to him instead of trying to be at Sundeer." Yvonne stared and shouted, "What do you mean? Who cares about him? I don't give a damn." Boo-oo-oo. A huge lightning bolt flashed across the sky as if it was tearing it into pieces along with strong winds. The sky began to rumble again and again. Cracking sounds, as if something was breaking, were heard one after another as the moon seemed to have been engulfed by darkness. Everyone knew it. It was the alien darkness that emerged from Alex's body that erased everything upon being touched. The darkness covering Alex seemed to have reached very high into the sky and seemed to crash into something terrible. "What's going on? Weren't they fighting at the second prince's mansion? How did they appear in the sky?" Yvonne spoke in disbelief. I think Alex might have thrown Hex very high into the sky, Catherine said solemnly. No, that's not it, Catherine said with a pale expression. How could Hex possibly have reached such a point that he could take on Alex, as a small mutter escaped her lips. With enough light to instantly color the night sky pure white, Alex began to take on Hex. Sean ordered his body to clear out the remaining members. However, at that moment, a strange chimera seems to attack them indiscriminately. The chimera was burned by high heat flames even before it could reach its target. Chimeras similar to this one try to escape but are all torn apart by Sean's corpses. What are you doing here? Yakel, a member of the 1st Division who had cut down the chimera, looked around. There was still a battle going on between them and the mage in the basement. As the level was cleared, Hex's forces were rapidly dwindling. Bastard! What did you do here? Sean cursed as he saw all the unusual creatures' minds. He worked with warlocks and was involved in human experimentation. The laboratory in the basement was filled with strange and twisted creatures, but even more shocking than that was the terrible magic that filled the basement to the point that Sean felt nauseous. Such heinous crimes would be punished even if you were an imperial prince. Sean heard a strange scream. At the end of the hallway is a massive iron door that leads straight to the basement. Hearing the murmurs, Sean steps forward towards the iron doors. Burning all enemies in his path, Sean pushed the door open. At that moment, Sean's eyes widened as he felt something. Magi erupted and struck Sean. Boom. Sean flew backwards dripping with blood and collapsed on the ground. You shouldn't have come in here, a cold voice came out that didn't fit the situation. Sean felt his body being squeezed and crushed under a strong pressure. It's a pity that I can't help. I should escape, but before that, I should kill you. Did you think this was your home where you could do whatever you wanted? A terrifying voice echoed in his ear. And with these 100 swords they pierced Harmon, and a terrifying voice reverberated as if a nail was scratching a steel plate. Feeling the power contained in each and every one of them, Harmon stopped moving and with widened eyes tried to block the swords. The friction caused by the collision caused spark to splatter in all directions. Trying to find a way, he ran towards the ceiling and pierced through it. When he was about to escape, he was hit by another dagger that pushed him back mercilessly. Black blood gushed out from the hole that appeared above his shoulder and he crashed heavily onto the ground. He then tilted his head towards the direction of the voice. Aren't you feeling happy? Shouldn't you greet me? We met again after a long time, and instead of greeting me, you run away. Who are you? Harmon muttered with a horrified face as he felt a power similar to his own. However, it was more sinister and terrifying. In the distance, a man with gray hair and black eyes walked towards him with a bright smile in the darkness. We meet again, Harmon. It's me, the first one who survived and the one you call a failed experiment. It's M01. As Harmon's entire body shook upon hearing the man's words. The outside world saw a large fireball streak across the sky and hit somewhere exploding like a meteor. Alex's body crashed into the ground along with Hex, creating a massive crater. Dust and flames rose in all directions around him. He didn't know where he was, but as soon as he stood up to check on his condition, he felt an influx of Harmon's panicked expression with his black magic and laughter. It seems Uncle Mag had learned a thing or two. What a way to reveal his existence, even he didn't know and he hadn't even asked him. He respected him and was certain of his loyalty to Raya. It was only after he beat the shit out of those Supremas that Mag told him about her past. Grrrrrrrrr. Alex snapped out of his thoughts when he heard a loud inhuman growl and looked to the side. What a disgusting piece of shit are you. Chapter 529, Trampling on His Pride. A horrible sound emerged from Hux's body. 4 pairs of dark wings sprouted from his back. Long, gnarled claws extended from his head. 9 eyes lit up on his dark face and a pair of horns grew on top of his head. Hex currently looked like a fallen angel and a messenger of darkness. A sharp, inhuman scream was heard, telling Alex not to ignore his existence. He was signaling Alex to die in regret for forcing him to do that. With this, his power began to evolve. It was quite different and powerful, as if it was the manifestation of an ancient being. Hex, whose body was unstable with this sudden influx of power, began to stabilize much to Alex's surprise. It was similar to angels, but instead of holiness there was only filth and disgust. The pill was not ordinary. Alex's eyes opened cautiously as Hex's energy evolved and his existence was imprinted on the world. The power of darkness. The power originated directly from the god of darkness, and only those who follow and worship him will be blessed with this. a power that was used by his followers to deal with the angels, the follower of light. It was quite a difficult power to handle, and having a light element doesn't mean you can master it. Ha ha ha, can you feel it now, the disparity in our power level? Is this the desperation you speak of? Ha 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 ha. A sinister laugh escapes Hex's lips. However, as if he didn't notice anything, Alex was interested in something else. How did you obtain that power? I mean, the pill you consumed can in no way grant you this power. Alex raised his guard, scanning everything around him. The power Hex had now could only be granted by the God of Darkness. This means that he is either witnessing this or Hex contacted him through the altar. Hex suddenly frowned for a moment and tried to recall how he obtained the power. For a moment, his memory went blank. As if he didn't know what he was doing now, and as he tried to remember, countless negative emotions flashed through his mind. Kill, kill, kill. Coma, I'm going to kill you. His mind was clouded by rage and the desire to kill. Silence. He flapped his wings and flew high into the sky. The entire world seemed to vibrate due to the pressure emanating from his body. The agitation in his eyes intensified, and he did not care about being stared at. Alex felt gazes as he watched the battle, but the problem was that he could not discern their position. They seemed to have the ability to hide and can only appear when they wish to. Alex also turned a blind eye to those farts who, instead of coming out, hid in their shells. However, all of them seemed to be prepared to make a move if necessary. It was at that moment that the Hex power completely covered the space and expanded crazily. With the sound of something breaking, the laws of the world surrounding Alex began to reverse. The gravity that pulled everyone to the ground began to pull Alex towards the sky. The expanded space narrowed and trapped Alex. Time began to flow backwards. Reverse law of deviation, he screamed and locked onto Alex. The laws of the world that maintained stability and ensured smooth operation were nullified by Hex, and instead were doing everything they could to erase Alex's existence. Bug, you can't even respond to this power. You overestimate your strength too much? Hex smiled at Alex and heard a low voice. You're right, I overestimated too much. You're nothing but a pitiful dying insect. Hex's eyes fluttered as the voice that should have ceased to exist after being trapped by Hex's attack began to echo in his ears. Hex's head moved towards the voice unwittingly. Appearing in his sight were Alex's eyes, which were curved like a crescent moon. It's disappointing, even with this much power, you only manage this much. Still, I shouldn't blame you. If the god behind you is nothing but a scumbag, what can you expect from his followers? Hex's body froze as he saw endless black stars spinning in the night sky out of nowhere. Dark spiderweb-like rays spread across the separated space, and all of Hex's power surrounding Alex began to crumble. Even before Hex couldn't hide his astonishment. Scratch. A dark line appeared over his body as Alex swung his sword and immediately cut off his upper body. Hex saw the arrival of death out of nowhere. After a brief silence, he screamed. Turn it off, stop it. Hex was able to make it out alive after expending a portion of the divinity he had received. Screaming in anger and fear, the new version of Hex soared straight into the sky as if heading towards the sun. Hex raised his hand and pushed out all of his power. Unable to withstand the pressure, the sky began to shape and tear apart. The sky began to descend, unable to hold back any longer. If it weren't for the night, everyone would be able to see a huge dent in the sky. A screeching sound could be heard that seemed to rip everyone's eardrums out. Alex could see the sky constantly melting and cracking, and he heard loud whispers in his ears. Alex, you have to do something. You can't cut the sky or tear it apart, otherwise a void would be created that would drag everything into an endless abyss. We need to spread out a large amount of power to fix this, and neither you nor the others in the world are strong enough to protect the world from the auction force. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead and he started to sweat profusely. Who the fuck hit their enemy with the sky? What kind of shit is this? Alex curses inwardly as he tries to put his mind into overdrive to do something. When the sky finally appeared before Alex. Scream. Alex's sword, which was slowly raised, began to unsheath. Laws are the most important element of the world and form the core of the world's fate. Hex was messing with the laws and altering them, causing the sky to fall, so can't he just cut off a part of the law he's interfering with? I wish he could become a part of the endless flow of time. Could he deny the cruel fate that might befall him in the future? Cut. Need to cut. Suddenly, Alex had an epiphany out of nowhere and smiled happily. Thank you, Hex, for allowing me to meet something beautiful. When Alex opened his eyes, countless lines in the flow of the world appeared before his sight. He caught a glimpse of the threads of law that were entwined in Hex's fingers. Total extinction. The moment the tip of the sword moved towards the sky, a catastrophe that was created by the being that gained divinity suddenly stopped. The time that the disaster existed was annihilated, and with this, the divinity within Hex was erased from this world as if it had never existed with him from the beginning, causing him to lose his mind. Chapter 530, See You in Hell. A part of the world was suddenly shrouded in darkness. The clash between the two devoured the light around Kingsley. For a moment, it was nothing but darkness. After a certain amount of time, when everything returned to how it was before, a clear, transparent, cloudless black sky appeared before his eyes. Being defeated, Hex silently looked at the sky with a face of disbelief as the last attack he launched simply disappeared, as if it had never existed. You cut through space and time, a calm voice came from his lips as his body trembled violently. Before Alex could respond, Hex's body began to reverse and the power began to dissipate. The wings on his back, the scales on his body, and the claws on his finger all disappeared, and as he returned to human form, he was horrified as he could neither sense nor manipulate mana. With a shocked expression, he lost control of his body and began to descend towards the ground like a meteor. A piercing scream from Hex rang out as his body reached close to the ground, but just as he was about to crash into the ground and be crushed to death, Alex looked down from above and waved his hand, saving Hex from a crash landing. He then looked up and saw a dark sphere containing a condensed mass of darkness floating in the air. It was Hex's power that had been bestowed by the god of darkness. Alex stretched out his hands and the drop of darkness floated towards Alex. In order to cut off the connection between the two, his existence must be greater than that of the person who bestowed the power upon him. The last attack was so fatal that it could even put demigods in a bind. However, the only reason he was able to suppress it and cut off the power supply was that his law of darkness was greater than this world itself. As Alex was about to touch it, a voice echoed in his ears. Cutting something that can't be. You amaze me. Alex was slightly startled for a moment, however all of this was within his expectations. By the way, where are you hiding now? How much longer are you going to stay hidden in your shell? Do you have an ugly face, or are you just a coward who plays behind the scenes? It's not the opportune time for me to appear. The world can't tolerate the shock of casualties, and I'm preparing a gift for you. I hope you'll like the gift I'll give you soon. Don't worry, I'll be there personally to receive the gift and send you to the afterlife. Ha 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 ha. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. The god of darkness, who spoke like a calm and reasonable person, suddenly changed his tone. Kid, watch your tongue. It seems you lack situational awareness. You don't know how great I am. Those girls don't seem to have educated you properly. The only reason I waste my time talking to you is because of the respect I have for you. This respect isn't because you have the potential to threaten or defeat me. It's because of your existence. You might have already seen it or have begun to understand the general idea, a small taste of your true self. I hope you can bear the consequences of your actions and regret what you did after you obtain the memory. Wait. What? What did you say about memory? Alex shouted, but there was no response from the other end. What memories does he have of my past self? Alex muttered to himself. It would be a lie if he said he wasn't curious about this. However, try as he might, he wasn't able to recall anything. Alex shook off the thoughts and spoke in a deep voice. Tell me where my Rhoda is, you moron. Do you have something to do with taking her away? Alex roared angrily, but he didn't get any response even after a while. Seeing that the remaining will of the god of darkness had disappeared, Alex sighed and pressed the bead. The darkness began to be absorbed into his body. At first, Alex felt some resistance to absorbing the power, but like a black hole, it devoured the power. The ninth star above him began to flicker and radiate a dark light. However, before he could emerge, Alex could feel the wall obstructing his path. It's not enough, Alex said with a frown. I need to find someone to vent my anger on, Alex muttered and started looking for someone. His image disappears and appears next to Hex. Hex coughed out blood and let out a painful moan, unable to accept defeat. Hex, who was screaming in anger, suddenly stopped when he saw Alex appear next to me. What are you going to do now? Kill me? Ha ha ha, I'm not afraid of death. You think I'm going to beg you? Beg a weak, pathetic bastard. Now stop staring at me and kill me. Alex closed his eyes and muttered. Hex, you would have died peacefully, but you just have to provoke me. You think I don't know that? Your obsession with Christina. Although I'm very surprised you were able to hold out this long to get her, she would be mine, if it weren't for you, you bastard. I was the one who found her first, but you took her from me. Hex roared angrily and spat out the blood in his mouth. I'm very proud of that. Hex coughed up more blood due to anger upon hearing Alex's words. Hex was about to spit at Ale, but before he could, Alex opened his eyes. The pair of eyes were as terrifying as if it was the end of the world, causing Hex's body to freeze like a statue. Alex smiled and the world around Hex suddenly fell into darkness. Hex felt himself sinking into the deep abyss of the sinister and his heart raced. Deep within the dark abyss, two pairs of bloodied eyes appeared, sending shivers down his spine. I want you to listen very carefully, Hex. Before this night is over, I will kill you, but before I kill you, I will make you suffer such unimaginable pain that you will writhe and beg, and then you will pray for the gift of death. Hex wanted to scream, he wanted to run. Hex, who wanted to conquer and humiliate others, was willing to give up everything and live his life quietly without provoking others, but it was too late to regret. The voice that ceased began to echo again. And eventually, I will give you that gift, but when you wake up in hell, you will find no peace, you know, Hex, because I will be there in hell waiting for you to wake up. Hex, no, please stop, don't worry, Alex responded to Hex's pleas. I will stop this once you die. Screams of pain and suffering echoed throughout the place as Alex's mana ravaged his body, destroying it from the inside. You will not be at peace after dying here, Hex, trust me, you will suffer more tragically after you die. Alex's words echoed in Hex's ears as pain clouded his vision. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 531, Shocking Revelation. A large crowd gathered before the imperial castle. The knights formed a barricade to stop the influx of common people and help the nobles enter the palace without much hindrance. Most of the people who came out of their houses were confused, wondering what was going on. In the early morning, the chimes echoed throughout the capital. Did anyone from the royal family die? A man whispered slowly. From the information I've received, it seems that Prince Hex had made a deal with the demons and wanted to rebel, but fortunately the 5th prince and the 1st prince joined forces to stop him. Another man spoke up. You can take a look at the remains of the 2nd prince's mansion. It was devastated. Oh God, the 5th prince and the 1st prince fought for us. If the demons had invaded, we might have lost our lives. We've always looked down on the 5th prince, but he's done a lot for us. I hope the goddess blesses him. By the way, are you sure that Prince Hex had conspired with the demons? A woman asked curiously. Yes, I heard that the 2nd prince's mansion had been clouded by the Magi and Lady Athena, and the saint purified it and stopped the miasma from spreading. While everyone was discussing and spreading the rumors, in the 5th prince's mansion, things were rather relaxed. 2 days. It was how long it had been since the capital became like this. During this period, many things happened. It was such a shocking event that it shook the entire nation. It was the first time that a prince died in the capital in his mansion. That used to be his stronghold, and he was also very close to becoming the next emperor. However, his death not only left a dark stain, but dark and corrupt powers were found on his body. Therefore, as soon as day broke, the news of this incident spread throughout the capital and created a sensation. They tried to keep it a secret, but the media kept publishing articles one after another and the nobles were confused. Haha, a sigh escaped Yvonne's lips. She looked at Alex and asked, was it necessary to make the matter so serious? I mean, why did you spread rumors about you and Sean dealing with all this, to gain the goodwill of the people? Alex said with a smile. You're locked up in the castle while the Lockhart's merchant group is harassed by the people. Ptuii. Alex nearly threw up his coffee and glared at Yvonne. Are you kidding me? You're being bullied. Do you think I don't know that you're deliberately blowing this up so you can gain something by leaking some juicy inside news? Yvonne pursed her lips and tried to avert Alex's gaze. Why do you have to pretend so much? You just want permission to leak some important news about Hex and blackmail the novels on their side. HMPH. You don't pass up an opportunity to scam. Alex snorted. Yvonne pouted and said, so what? It's a wife's right to take advantage of her husband. Shameless. I learned that from my husband. Alex felt his heart melt for a moment as he saw Yvonne's softened expression. No, Alex thinks otherwise. Who knows if this girl might sell me out one day. Catherine watched silently as it was the usual routine of this discussion. However, thinking of something, she chuckled. Now that I think about it, There's no news of Yvonne helping you in this. Did you take the role from her? Yvonne asked curiously as she thought of something mischievous. She can only blame herself. Who asked her to throw weak warriors at me? It's already a good thing she didn't kill them. I hope they've passed the message on to Yvonne. She should stop now, otherwise, she'll face my wrath. Alex nodded as she thought of what Yvonne might be feeling now. Alex finished her coffee and stood up. Okay, girls, we've had enough fun. Time to pack up. All the preparations are done. Then, it's time to move north. I'll take care of Lionheart for you, Catalina replied. I'll take care of the business group, Yvonne said. They both spoke indifferently, as it was their usual job. Cough, cough. It seems there's some kind of misunderstanding. I said everyone come. You two will come with me as well. What? Both Catherine and Yvonne stood up with surprised expressions. What are we going to do in the north? You don't need to know. Just follow me to the north. But, I said you would come with me. Alex's voice turned cold, catching them off guard. Alex shook his head and said, I can't tell you the reason, but listen to me, you are going to play a very important role. Your existence is very important in this world, and you can't escape it. Alex spoke and left, letting Catherine and Yvonne calm down a bit. Alex arrived at the underground basement that was used to store prisoners. Alex passed through the guards and appeared in the dimly lit room. Uncle Mag, did you find anything? Alex asked as he looked at Harmon's figure, who was barely alive. Your Highness, he had a core in his body. You need to destroy the core to get rid of them, Mag muttered and pointed at the black core that had been forcefully removed from Harmon's body and sewn close to his chest. With just one look, Alex finally understood everything. From the monsters in their territory to all those strange experiments the organization conducts. All of this was meant to produce a being like this. They collect cores and transplant them into the body while that experiment with the flesh shield is being conducted to develop healing. I wish they would use their brains to improve people's lives instead of creating stupid things like this. Alex looked at Mag and spoke after pondering for a moment. Uncle Mag, do you also have the core? You don't need to tell me if you feel uncomfortable. Revealing this secret was like handing over the key to his life to Alex. Mag, contrary to Alex's expectations, chuckled. From the day I followed Lady Raya after being saved by her, I decided to dedicate my life to her, and since Lady Raya's life is yours, I acknowledge you as my master. It would be another thing if you were incompetent, but I am proud to serve a master like you. Instead of a course, I have 2 hearts, and from torture, I learned that the first 2 experiments also have 2 hearts instead of a course, and both of them have mono hearts. You don't know much about them, but I think this is enough. Alex nodded and placed his hands on Harmon. Let's take a look at his memories. Countless images appeared one after another and overlapped. Alex suddenly opened his eyes and took a step back with a mortified expression. Your Highness, what happened? Alex panted heavily, digesting the wish he had just seen. I got the location of most of the branches in Kinley and many other things. He doesn't know anything about all the experienced individuals. However, some of them might have powers beyond the Overlord. Mag's expression faltered and his body shuddered as soon as he heard this. Chapter 532, The Return of King Leo. Star Knights of the Kinley Empire. When choosing the most powerful force in the Empire, many names could come up, but among them, the first one that came to mind was the Kinley Star Knights. They are the monsters that go beyond the category of human beings, and the condition to join is to have the skills of another knight leader of the Imperial Squadron. They are the sword that exists only for the Emperor and stand at the top of all the knights in the world. Except for the Emperor, the Crown Prince had the flexibility to order them, but he couldn't use them for personal reasons and needed to have a valid cause. Alex might need to go against the Demon King and need his support. Then, one of the Star Knight captains stood in front of Alex. It's been a while, Your Majesty Alex. Alex stared at the middle-aged man with a serious expression. You seem familiar, Alex asked curiously. Hearing his question, the man laughed a little. I can't believe you remember me, Heavenly Swordsman Aslan. He is an expert in the half-saint realm and holds great power in his hands. However, the man who always had a cold expression seemed to look at Alex gently. Alex, who only has fragments of memories from his childhood, couldn't help but feel a little nostalgic upon seeing him. When you were a child, you were quite mischievous and often sneaked out here and there. You either ran away here and there or always complained about having to go out. In order to prevent you from being harmed, His Majesty assigned me the role of a coachman. Alex's jaw dropped to the floor. The half-holy realm expert was his coachman. Hearing this, he felt like he was some kind of big shot. "Your Highness, forgive me for speaking a little rudely. It's okay. Perhaps you would have never expected me to be the crown prince," Alex muttered, trying to hide his embarrassment. Aslan shook his head and said, "It wasn't that unexpected. Let me tell you a secret. We, the members of the Star Knights, always have a suspicion that you might be the crown prince. It's a good joke. You already knew about my situation at that time. Nothing in the world is impossible, Your Highness. There was also a chance that you would be cured, and now our wait is finally over." Alex nodded and looked outside. "Why have you called me today, Your Highness?" "I'm calling you for two reasons. First of all, we are moving tomorrow, and I ask you to take care of my wives. Each of them is going to play a crucial role in the war, and you must protect them until they reach the border." Aslan thought for a moment and agreed. They are their master's swords. Their master's orders are law. "Now, the second thing. I want you to connect the Zenith portal to the Western Territory today. And after I go there, I will connect it to the northern part." "Hey, Western Territory," Aslan muttered with a frown. "Yes, I'm going west for a moment. In the meantime, Leonhardt's troops will arrive first, Your Highness. We're just going there to handle things and retaliate if necessary. We're not going to war, are we?" Aslan asked, gulping. However, seeing Alex look away, he began to tremble and asked again. "Well?" Alex didn't answer and stood up. "I need to go somewhere. It's very urgent. I can feel nature calling me now. Well, goodbye." Alex escapes, leaving Aslan bewildered. Somewhere far from the zenith, a man was walking through the ancient, dark brown forest, which reeked of centuries. The ground he stepped on was cracked beneath his feet. The trees were majestic and tall and reached up into the sky, standing proudly. The smell of organic composting rose like waves of miasma, and as he ventured deeper into the tangled heart of the primeval forest, a cacophony of screeching sounds traveled around him. A gale was brewing with roars that sent his golden leaves fluttering in the dark forest. As the sound grew closer, many pairs of cruel, corvid-like eyes were fixed on the man. The dimly lit forest suddenly lit up due to many bloody eyes that were enough to send shivers down one's spine. None of them were below the legendary rank, proving the reason why no one ventured into the forest. From the pair of eyes, two golden eyes flashed, and a huge body seemed to walk forward through the veil of mist. With each step, the ground began to tremble, and after a few steps, its huge body appeared before the man's field of vision. It looked ancient and seemed to have a love for violence. Two large dark-colored beastly horns shone while its golden-colored mane seemed to glow. Its fangs, as sharp as swords, exuded a strong aura of oppression, and its body was covered in golden scales all around. On top of its head, a dark red crown seemed to show the status of the beast as it walked, radiating majesty while drawing reverence from other beasts. Walking forward, it stopped in front of the man, and then, taking a breath of air, it roared. Like the sound of the trumpet, its roar echoed and traveled through the forest. The man turned his head away as his eardrum burst due to a roar. The beast that was seemingly mocking the human for entering its territory was suddenly hit by a punch. Bang! Its entire body shook, and when it was about to fly back, its tail was pulled and it fell to the ground. "You dare to behave arrogantly in front of me, idiot Leo. I want your army to move Leonshard and protect the kingdom, but before that it seems I need to teach you some manners." Bang! 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 The beasts surrounding them wanted to intercede for their king, but they were afraid of the ruthless man. After all, he was their master's king. After a while, the dust dispersed and a small kitten lay on the ground. Alex took out a crown and dusted it off. It was Nevin's treasure, which helped control wild beasts. It was also the reason why no beasts attacked the capital, even though there were no guards patrolling the capital. Leo jumped down and, sitting on Alex's shoulder, tried to act cute. "Leo, I don't have time to play with you. Rida has been kidnapped and the situation is a little worse." Leo's puppy eyes widened and a violent aura emanated from his body. He roared as if asking, "Who is that bastard?" "You don't need to worry about it, just protect Leonhard," Alex muttered and looked at the massive number of beasts. Many of them were locked up in right after an experiment that Leo tamed with the help of a crown. The main reason Alex threw Leo here was that he was jealous of that bastard who had been desired by all of his wives. Even Yvonne turns her back on him, hugging Leo and playing with him. The second reason was that he wanted Leo to train and conquer the beast in the forest so that they could be used in times of need. Chapter 533, Their Progress. Reaching out with his bare hands, a man pushed the giant axe into the ground. Although at first glance the ground seemed to crack a little, From the place where the axe was stuck into the ground, a large crack about 100 meters wide stretched out. A scene appeared before everyone's eyes in which the tremendous strength of the man with the bulging muscles could be guessed. A slight snort was heard from the other side and a shadow jumped several meters with a huge hammer and smashed it into a cliff. Boom! The cliff with its gentle slopes exploded, causing rocks to fly everywhere. The shockwave swept everything away and the splinters left from the impact flew everywhere. With a roar, two giants faced each other, causing cracks to sweep the area. However, instead of fighting, each of them tried to show the destruction they can cause. Far away from the two, a group of men watched the scene while shaking their heads. This shit is going away. What kind of bullfight is this? Ben said in a mocking voice. They are proving their strength to each other for fear of being injured before the war, Mordek said. Hearing this, Ben's expression distorted and his eyes fluttered for a moment. Mordek, who saw Ben's expression, patted him on the shoulders. It's okay, Ben. The only reason both of them have made great progress is that they followed your highness. You're not like me, who has already exhausted all of your potential. You're still young and could still make progress. Ben smiled bitterly and looked ahead with a burning gaze. Mordek had already passed the stage where he could improve the fastest. Alex's push helped him reach epic, and in the past few years, Lampard, Mordek and Earl Steelwall had all reached the transcendent stage, and unless a miracle happened, they would either be beaten here or could only reach the legendary rank in this life. However, that's the limit. This shows that no matter how much potential you have, if you pass a certain age you won't be able to progress as fast as you did in your youth. Max and Antoine had both reached a legendary rank, however, Ben was reached the transcendent rank. He just needed to put in some effort, and following the Lord could give him this opportunity. Ben also tried to comfort Mordek as he knew that he might be feeling down as well. It's okay, Uncle Mordek, you're not too old yet. Although you're already at the age of being a grandfather, you're already capable enough to have children. You're only 20 years older than me. A thick vein bulged on Mordek's head and he stared at Ben, raising his voice. What did you say? Mordek immediately drew his sword and shouted, Come, shall I show you how young I am? Ben, who felt murderous intent, also drew his sword to defend himself while fucking. It was a joke. A joke. Clear sound. Clear sound. You damn bastard, I'm going to kill you. How dare you disrespect me? Mordek's screams echoed in the valley. What do you mean by disrespect? I just said simple facts. Strong gales swept through everything and the sound of the rumbling echoed everywhere. Max and Antoine, who were demonstrating their strength, suddenly stopped. They looked at the cloud of dust and saw two figures fighting. One seemed to be stepping over the other's throat as the other defended himself, trying to find a way to escape. Why is Uncle Mordek attacking Ben? Antoine asked. Maybe Uncle Mordek got hit right on the sensitive spot. I see, Antoine replied indifferently, and both of them continued with their usual tasks. While the sound. Inside a dense forest, a man was sitting under the waterfall. The water splashed on him at high speed and his body glowed with a deep blue color. Mana intertwined within him and gathered into a core near his navel. A hot and fierce energy began to ignite his entire body, which was cooled by the waterfall. The man who was meditating opened his eyes in surprise. Dad, what happened? A man with a wrinkled face walked over to the edge of the waterfall and said, Hordes of beasts are moving here. It seems the monster's rampage has begun. Earl Steelwall, upon hearing the report, ran over here as fast as he could. His son used to meditate here and might suffer a backlash if he was interrupted. A gentle smile formed on his lips. It's all right, father. Your son is not as weak as you think. Grrrrrrrr. Rumble. Scream. Loud noises could be heard from all around, shaking the entire forest. These damn beasts are here. Count Steel cursed and pulled out his sword. Ian, we should move quickly. There's no need. Ian's response surprised Count Steelwall. However, what he did next left him stunned. As the sound of footsteps grew closer, Ian raised his hand. His body grew increasingly hot as a fierce mana began to envelop his hands. Ian closes his eyes and tries to remember Alex's words. Master the sword. Become one with the sword. Once you understand the true essence of the sword, anything you hold will become the sword. Even though he hadn't reached such a state, his progress was quite exceptional. The aura above his hand took the shape of the sword, and as it condensed, he released the aura made from the sword. Swish. The sword spread out across the surface and formed a giant arc. A red line was drawn on the surface that began to spread horizontally and moved towards the direction Ian pointed. Silence descended for a moment as the loud noise emitting from the forest ceased to exist. However, the silence lasted only a moment, as after this, trees began to fall one after another and loud screams could be heard. Count Steelwall, who was watching the scene, was bewildered to see monsters and beasts cut into halves approaching them. The trees began to slowly descend, piling on top of each other. "So, this is the power of the legendary realm?" he spoke with a stifled expression. At that moment, he felt that not even 20 of them could defeat Ian. "You have grown well. Following your lord was the best decision you could have made." Ian laughed lightly and nodded. "Yes, I am very fortunate to be blessed with such a great master." Eastern Territory, near Harold's borders. A figure passed beyond the borders as he observed everything. The security was tight and the soldiers were quite capable. Unlike the Western Territory, the soldiers here have a fierce aura befitting of warriors. There were several minor skirmishes with Harold, however, Kinley never took a step back since then. Over 500,000 soldiers were stationed here. Unlike the desert conditions of the Western Front, the area here had a temperate climate and a significant area comprised of grasslands and temperate forests. The figure passed under the gaze of all the patrolling soldiers and arrived at a secluded spot where there was previously a hideout. As Alex pulled down his hood, he heard a small sound. "You're finally here. I've had to wait for you for too long. Do you know how much I've suffered to get here?" "Who told you that you owed me a favor, Professor?" Alex huffed. A dark-robed figure with a familiar face appeared, causing a slight fluctuation in the air. It was none other than Quinn, who is always looking for a fight like crazy. "A few months ago, you were at the legendary rank, but now I can't understand where you were. My dream of having a life-or-death fight was shattered." Alex's lips twitched and he said, "We can still fight, if you can become as strong as me." "Strong like you? I'm not a monster like you. By the way, what realm are you in right now?" "I don't know," Alex said after a while. Well, enough talking for now. Let's get this over with." "And why the fuck are we here moving around like fugitives?" Quinn asks with a frown. "It's because we're here to meet a great person who has accomplished something beyond your imagination," Alex muttered. But before Quinn could ask anything, he took out a communication stone and spoke. "We've arrived. Kill that bastard. He has no need to live anymore." Chapter 534, Shin's Secret. Inside a dark and colorless prison cell, Shin's body, which was once round like a ball, had slowly begun to lose its abdominal fat. Wrinkles had formed all over his face, and rotting away in the cell, his body was covered in dust and dirt. As he trembled and continued his daily routine of cursing his enemies, his ear picked up the subtle sound of something slithering. He opened his eyes and looked around to find nothing. He rubbed his eyes and as his eyelids fluttered, his expression changed and he was about to scream. However, a gag was placed on his lips. A darkly veiled man appeared out of nowhere. "Hello, Mr. Shin. You might be wondering what's going on. Let me answer the question you're curious about. His Highness has approved your death request, so I'm finally here to free you." Oh. Shen tried to ask who that person was referring to. "I don't know what you're saying and I don't have much time to waste with you," was the last thing Shen heard before his throat was slit with a dagger and everything around him went dark. The man after cutting off Shen's head stood up and spoke. "Your Highness, I've done my job here. Well, you can go now. I'll settle things here." A cold voice was heard from the other side and the man soon disappeared from the cell, leaving Shen's corpse behind. "These guys are scary. Humans have bodies as tough as a giant's," Alex and Quinn greeted as they entered the underground labyrinth. It was surprising to see these kinds of humans who have lost their minds and only know one thing, which is to stop the intruder. Each of them was around 3 meters tall and looked burly like orcs. The giants ran towards Quinn and waved their arms at him. At first glance, it seemed like they were running in anger, and even at that speed, their breathing didn't alter and their steps were also quite steady. The movement of a person seemed to have been engraved on their body. As the giant approached them, Alex moved as fast as lightning. Leaving behind after images, Alex cut off the ankles of the legs that bear the weight of such giants. The giant lost its center of gravity and its body bent. Soon after, Alex punched out and put them in an area. The giant's face, contorted in pain, screamed in astonishment. As they crashed into the wall one after another, Quinn snapped her fingers and threw blue lotus flames at them. The lotus flame burst like a firecracker and burned their bodies to ashes. Quinn walked up to Alex and muttered, "There are several rather unusual humans guarding this place." "What is this place?" Is it a ruin or an ancient chamber that holds something grand? Alex raised his eyebrows and said, Professor, you're thinking too much. There's nothing of the sort here. We're almost at the end. Alex and Quinn headed underground. They were attacked by golems and various types of deformed creatures, but were mercilessly torn apart by the duo. As Quinn ventured inside, he wondered why the hell he was even here. Alex was more than enough to deal with the entire crisis here. He wondered if he needed him for his knowledge, but as far as he knew, Alex had a deep understanding of magic and its applications, while his knowledge is more than he could imagine. We're here, Quinn snapped out of her thoughts when she heard Alex's words. At that moment, Quinn felt something from afar. A dense, rich layer of mana. Sensing such rich mana, she was taken aback for a moment. However, when she looked at Alex, her heart skipped a beat. Something strange seemed to exist in Alex's eyes. It was dark. No, something deeper than alien darkness. It wouldn't be wrong for her to call it an abyss. The abyss seemed to suppress all existence around it and eerily stimulate the depth of a person's heart. In the end, the words didn't come out because she saw glowing particles in the air and muttered in surprise. A mana vein? What is a mana vein doing here and why does no one know? Because of him, Alex muttered. Quinn followed Alex's line of sight and saw a massive mana rocks sticking out of the ground in a circle. There were runes on the walls and several layers of magic circles were drawn on the floor, which glowed dimly and absorbed the mana from the surroundings. In the middle of all this lay a man with long hair and an unkempt beard that fell over his chest. No words came out of his lips as he took in the scene and wondered what was going on. You know him? You came for him? Alex watched Quinn's expression for a moment and then burst out laughing. Professor, not only me, but you two know this person very well. He is a very respected figure and is well known throughout Kinley due to his great deeds. How can you forget someone so important? Do you have a habit of forgetting illnesses? Alex mocked Quinn, which embarrassed him. Are you kidding me? This person seems like a bastard whose life essence seems to have been drained from his body. I knew you wouldn't believe me, but I'm telling you the truth. The one lying there is none other than that bastard Shen. Shit, Quinn jumped back in surprise. How is this possible? Quinn felt a lump in her throat as she received the biggest shock of her life. Swish. A deathly silence lasted for a moment, which was interrupted by a scream. It seems he's woken up from his long sleep, Quinn said with a bewildered expression. Yet, he woke up only to go back to sleep, Alex said with a wide grin on her face. Chapter 535, Second Body. Surrounded by shining protruding stones, a body submerged in a liquid half a foot deep, he opened his eyes. His vision was hazy and his memories were blank, however it didn't take long for his memories to fill up. As various images flashed through his mind, his face twisted into a frown. His breathing became rough and heavy and his face turned red due to the anger that boiled over him. The body stood up and roared in anger. Damn you, you piece of shit. How dare you ruin my plan that I've invested so much effort into, bastard, I will kill you. I will erase your existence and then make your wives my slaves after imprisoning them. I will make you suffer agony that is several times worse than death. Shen, who was in the phase of a series of outbursts, began to spew curses one after another, but his speech stopped when he felt a presence beside him. She turned her head and it was then. Her body froze like a statue. Her jaws opened wide, unable to close. The words stuck in her throat as she saw a man who exuded a darkness as dark as the abyss. Surprise, surprise. Hello, Shen, it's not very nice to meet you. A flash of killing intent flashed in Alex's eyes as he stared deeply into Shen's eyes. Shen's body shook and he backed away in fear of death. How are you here? How? Who told you? Shen cried out in disbelief as there shouldn't be anyone who knew about this place or his second body 15 years ago. Shen, who was patrolling the borders with his unit, found a secret hideout. The hideout seemed to be a place of human experimentation. Experiments to create clones of a body using the user's cells, after which, the user can cut out a part of their soul and transfer it to the other body. Shen, after learning about all of this, killed his unit to prevent the news from leaking out. The hideouts also had a map of the mana vein hidden there. He began his experiments and after he managed to create a body, trouble appeared. How will he cut out his soul? And even if he cuts out his soul, can he reattach it? A Saint Realm expert could do it, but for a mythic ranker like him, this was suicide. So, he used ancient magic to transfer his entire soul into the new body that had no combat power and was completely empty. His real body was hidden here in the mana pool, and the magic circles would absorb the mana and transfer it into his body, keeping him alive. While transferring his soul, he found that he could do this twice, as it puts a huge strain on his soul and he might get injured if he continues. This gives him 2 lives, so he gambled on siding with the second Prince Hex. Even if he died, he would have another life and would simply remain hidden for the rest of his life. However, did you contemplate a few things? If you haven't, you can do so in hell. No, please forgive me and I will teach you the technique to create a second thing, so please. Shen almost burst into tears and prayed for mercy. Alex raised his eyebrows and spoke calmly. Do you think you are worthy of negotiating with me? Did you think you had achieved something that was beyond common sense? If so, are you mistaken? Alex spoke with a sinister smile that made Shen's heart skip a beat. Alex had gone through Shen's memories and had already inherited the procedures. He was quite surprised at first, but as he went through things, he laughed as he knew a bit about the subject. Anyone who studied a bit of biology would know about stem cells, which were undifferentiated cells that could be used to produce organs of any kind. With stem cells you could create organs, but with magic and a growth medium you could create your entire body in this world. Alex only needed a few cells from any part of the body, and he was good to go. Alex walked forward, causing Shen to flinch back. As Alex got closer, Shen gritted his teeth and attacked Alex by covering his hand with an aura. He thought about taking him down with a surprise attack, but when he stabbed him, his hand was covered in mana. He found that he stopped a few inches away from Alex's body and his hand wouldn't move any further no matter how hard he tried. It was as if an invincible armor was blocking his way. Alex placed his hand on Shen's head and stroked his hair. Shen's body shook and he had a bad feeling. Bang! Like a watermelon, his head burst into pieces, splattering blood everywhere. The headless corpses fall down and Alex hears a clicking sound from behind. TSKK. How boring. Quinn spoke to Spawn. I don't have time to play with him. Quinn nodded and asked, now, what do you need me for? I need you to watch over this place. What? Quinn said in surprise. For Quinn, standing and watching with no one to fight is the worst thing he could do. Professor Quinn, please take this seriously. In a way, the fate of this world will depend on you. Let's wrap things up here because I have to run north, Alex said as he looked at the system window. Everything had been prepared and once he got through all of this, the dangers that awaited him would be lesser. I hope nothing unexpected happens there and I'm not crying at all. What he wanted to do in the north was not to wage war, but to establish his dominance. Soon, the world will know who the hell he is and what the consequences of offending him are. And the demons who surely played a role in Rai's kidnapping will pay dearly. Chapter 536, It's Time for Revenge. Aslan along with the Kinley Star Knights guarding Alex's wives gulped as they watched the scene in front of him. Aslan thought that Alex would need time to stabilize the north. First, he needed to control the troops so that he could voice his opinion. He thought that Alex would find it difficult to establish his authority over the large number of troops. However, things seemed to be very different than he had imagined. Am I dreaming? Aslan rubbed his eyes, wondering if this was a dream. You are perfectly fine, Captain. It is reality. It seems that we have underestimated His Highness. Aslan nodded and looked at the neatly arranged and stationed troops in front of him. A large number of knights appeared here to greet them. There were two obstacles that one had to face if they wanted to take control over the northern troops. The first obstacle was Prince Sean and the second was Axel Zart. First, Prince Sean seemed to be on Alex's side, so the troops under Sean's command wouldn't pose much trouble and might have accepted Alex's authority so Axel could resist Alex's control. But to their surprise, as soon as they stepped out of the portal, they found Axel Zart waiting for them and bowed his head as if he was serving his master. Aslan walked towards Axel with a frown and raised his eyebrows. How did you lose your hand, Axel? His words caught everyone's attention. Axel, who was heading to the capital, returned after losing his left hand, and no one knew exactly what had happened. Axel was sweating profusely as he felt a cold gaze from Catherine and said, I was attacked by some adversaries which cost me this. It's better than losing your life or other precious things. Yvonne snorted upon learning the true story. By the way, who are they? Said Aslan upon seeing three new faces in charge of the troops. Catherine followed Aslan's gaze and said, he's injured. Beside him is Joey and the one behind is Jeremy. The trio noticed everyone's gazes and tilted their heads. What the? Aslan was startled upon seeing them. Joey and Jeremy were at the early legendary rank, however, Hurt, contrary to everyone's wildest dream, was at the peak of the mythic rank. Monster. It's another monster. Hurt ignored Aslan, who was like a child in front of his eyes, and walked towards Catherine and Yvonne. It's a pleasure to see you all, Your Highness. I hope you didn't have any inconvenience during the journey, Hurt said politely. The journey was comfortable, Catherine muttered and looked around. I don't see Christina anywhere, and also, where's Athena? Lady Christina is in front while Lady Athena seemed too busy with some kind of runes. Hurt felt a little strange calling them lady instead of lady, however, he had no other choice since last time, Alex brutally beat him up for calling them lady, which he doesn't know why, so taking precaution he decided to address them as Highness. Do you know Alex's plans? Yvonne asked as Alex kept her in the dark. No. Hurt shook his head and spoke. We were asked to organize the troops as soon as possible and eliminate the traitors. Fortunately, with Duke Axel's support, we were able to carry things out quickly. As the discussions were escalating, Catherine and Yvonne had a bad feeling. At that moment, a strong pressure radiated from all around. The intense, chilling aura froze everyone and attracted their attention. Whoosh! With a bang, a man appeared in the sky carrying an unfathomable yet familiar aura to many. Dark hair floated against gravity, and as if it were a night itself, a dark, deathly aura emerged from his body with a bloody glow emerging from his eyes. He lowered himself and looked around. When Alex appeared before their eyes, they bowed their heads and waited for him to speak. Soldiers of the North, I thank you sincerely and from the bottom of my heart for protecting the North from those cruel invaders who wanted to cause chaos. Your sacrifice is what keeps other people safe. However, in this process, you have pushed us back too far. Let me ask you one thing, how long? Alex paused for a moment and observed everyone's expressions. Are we just going to sit back and watch as they carry out their atrocities? Tell me, how long are we going to allow them to do this? The soldiers' expressions turned solemn and the thought of their lost comrade made their hearts boil. It's time for a change. It's time for them to know our power. It's time for you to know the power of the strongest empire that has ever existed in history, and it's time to have our revenge. Alex shouted, and his words echoed like thunder that was accompanied by the loud cry of the soldiers' screams. Revenge, revenge. I, Alex von Leonhardt, will guide you so that you can take revenge and quench your thirst with the blood of the bloody demons. Now move and trample the border. Do not fear the miasma, for the blessing of the goddess is upon you, Alex muttered and snapped his fingers. Huge golden circles spread across the sky one after another. Showers of holy water began to fall that seemed to exude strong holy powers. While the humans felt refreshed and alive, the miasma at the borders began to disperse. Suddenly, everything became chaotic. No one could hide the surprise on their face. Is this what Athena was busy with? Yvonne spoke with a puzzled expression. It seems so, Catherine nodded. Catalina, listen to me carefully. You and Christina will lead the troops from the front while Yvonne and Athena will seek the rear. Why me? Catherine shouted in a panicked tone, thinking of what she was going to do at the front. Strategists work from behind, don't they? Alex brought his face closer to Catherine and said, listen to me, Catherine. In this war we only have one strategy, which is to advance and kill. Leave the rest to me. Measures can be taken from the front as well. You speak as if you were going somewhere else. Why don't you fight at the front? Catherine asked. Alex nodded with a smile. I'm going to meet the elves. I'll finish the negotiation work today. How can it be so easy? Do you think it's easy to come to this conclusion quickly? Ha. Alex laughed and his figure began to float. You're misunderstanding something. I'm not going there to talk, I'm going there to subdue them. Alex's voice echoed as his figure disappeared. Aslan, hearing this, nearly fell on his butt. Do you want to turn the entire world upside down with your power? In the elf shrine, the elf king Hendel stood with a solemn expression. Beside him, the elf queen Irina tried to calm him down. We'll surely find a way. Hendel took Irina's hands and shook his head. Holy Penelope, is there no way to save the world tree? Saint Penelope opened her golden eyes and said, I can only stop the corruption. This is something beyond my powers. Holy power doesn't seem to have any effect on this. These were the same words she kept repeating no matter how much he questioned her. Is this the crisis the elder spoke of? He also asked me not to get into conflict with the chosen one. I don't know what he meant by that. I mean, why the fuck would we fight with a person who's going to help us? It's absurd. Hendel raised his head and looked at the gigantic tree that seemed to touch the sky and cover half of the elven land. Many leaves of the world tree have fallen and the branches have turned into dry twigs. Every leaf of the world tree is precious and could be used for various purposes. Now, seeing such valuable things rotting away made his heart ache. While he was lost in his thoughts, suddenly the entire forest trembled. Boom! Boom! The platform they were standing on began to shake. "Honey, what happened?" Irina asked with a frown. Hindel's face turned pale as a sheet of paper. "I have to go. Someone has breached the barrier." "What?" Irina cried. Even Penelope's expression began to crumble. "Is this the work of that creature? Are they finally going to make a direct move?" Irina asked in a worried tone. "I don't know, but I will make sure none of them leave alive." Hindel roared angrily and his figure disappeared. With a single step, he appeared on the outer periphery of the elves, and his eyes widened as he saw corpses lying everywhere and fire spreading wildly. And in the center of it all, there was a man with black hair holding a corpse. Seeing Hindel, a cruel smile formed on his lips, and throwing the dead elf aside, he leapt towards him. Chapter 537, Waging War. "Brother, it seems the Knights of the Empire were up for something. They're gathering at the borders." Hagen ran along the stone wall with beads of sweat dripping down his forehead. He looked at Raghu, who was standing on the wall. Raghu, seeing Hagen's expression, sneered, "Oh. It seems the stupid humans have had enough. Don't worry. Send the order to transport our tribe's bows and arrows to the city walls. Put the best warriors on the walls. There are many tribes in the center of the demon continent overseeing the matter." Raghu was the chief of the Minotaur tribe and along with others was in charge of surveillance here. A small-sized tribe had around 3,000 demons and large-sized tribes had around 50,000 warriors, not taking into account the young ones. Unlike the human troops, which are mostly made up of men, the women and the demons can fight just as well as the men. Raghu, an elderly demon, walked up to the wall and spoke. "Miasma will keep them at bay for now. So focus on defense first. We'll tire them out first, and when they're at their last straw, we'll attack with all our might and sweep away all the enemies." "Yes, Uncle. I'm thinking the same thing too. Let them taste the miasma of miasma." The elderly demon nodded and smiled as he saw that Raghu had calmed down. His fear that some of those passionate young men would attack the enemy camp was unfounded. As they stared at the dark mist, rain fell on them. At first they didn't think much of it, but after a few moments their bodies began to itch and burn. "Something's wrong," Raghu said with a frown. "Raghu!" the old man shouted in panic as he looked ahead. The dark miasma slowly began to disperse, giving them a clear view of the front. "Prepare for battle," Raghu shouted as he heard slight fluctuations. Thousands of archers knocked their arrows on their bows at the same time, fixing their gaze on the valley. The demons near the catapult waited for Raghu to pass on the order. Behind the walls were demons who seemed to be prepared for the bloody feast. They had vicious smiles before, but now they stared at the city walls with serious expressions. Hundreds of dragons, flying eagles, and griffins appeared in the demons' field of vision. They were like a black blur flying towards them. All of them were flying beasts of transcendent level or higher and could carry 2 people each. They possessed speed, agility, and strength that made them suitable for aerial attack. All of the knights were of legendary rank. Whether it was by swooping down or descending on enemy camps, they could deal significant damage. And with many mages among them, they could also protect themselves from enemy attacks. The leader of the flying squadron, Barnes, looked down with a serious expression and shouted, "Charge!" The soldiers began their swooping attacks and launched a spear downwards. The spear suddenly ignited and descended, leaving behind a trail of fire. "Go!" a furious howl thundered. Fireballs rained down on the city wall. The spear with the flaming tail that descended struck the walls and exploded in fire for the last time. Boom! 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 Thousands of spears fell from the ground and exploded against the city walls, disorganizing the demons on the walls and causing them to fall to the ground. In the blink of an eye, another imposing army appeared on the ground. Javelin team, Christina gave the order, and thousands of warriors with 3-meter-long javelins and sharp objects came to the front and began to salute the demon. The skies above the border were filled with a rain of javelins. Raghu panicked and shouted, "Deploy the formation and activate the barrier quickly. Fire the arrows and launch the catapults." 10 pillars shone on the walls and a barrier appeared, covering them. Raghu breathed a sigh of relief and thought that the time to counter had finally come. However, contrary to his thoughts, his eyes widened as he saw the javelins pierce through the barrier as if they had never existed. "What the hell?" Raghu jumped in shock as he saw the javelin hit the ground and detonate, killing a few demons. High-temperature flames spread everywhere and the walls began to burn as the javelins rained down on them. Christina stared at the scene, praising such a marvelous creation. The javelins had been imbued with explosives or gunpowder, and anti-magic runes had been created at the tip that would allow it to pierce through any high-level barrier. The javelins flew through the air after being thrown and pierced through the barrier and dove deep into the walls, forming a beautiful parabola as they rained down towards the enemies. As a counterattack, just before the javelins could land and explode, a wall of ice appeared before them. Duck, 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 duck. A series of noises occurred as ice shards due to the explosion were sent everywhere. The giant slab that appeared above the demons burst into sharp fragments that tore apart their skin and caused gruesome wounds. And the alternating expansion and condensation of the gas due to fire and ice sometimes intensified the explosion. Large cracks appeared on the walls as the attack from both sides continued. The demon archers were unable to pierce Kinley's defenses, while the mages were preoccupied with trying to maintain the barrier that didn't provide much defense. Bang! 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 Screams. Wailing. Screams of agony echoed everywhere. Dark smoke rose into the air as the demons were pushed back. The path leading to the bottom of the wall began to tremble and rise. It was evident that the magic casters wanted to either destroy the walls or draw a path to connect the top of the walls to provide a way for the cavalry to rush in and take down the enemies at the lowest possible cost. And it didn't take long for them to achieve this. The moment they broke through the defense of the wall, they knew that victory was guaranteed. Raghu, who rose from the dust, could watch in disbelief as Kinley's soldiers began to slaughter them like ants while trampling on their pride. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelists. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 538, It's Time for Revenge. Aslan, along with the Kinley Star Knights guarding Alex's wives, gulped as they watched the scene in front of him. Aslan thought that Alex would need time to stabilize the north. First, he needed to control the troops so that he could voice his opinion. He thought that Alex would find it difficult to establish his authority over the large number of troops. However, things seemed to be very different than he had imagined. Am I dreaming? Aslan rubbed his eyes, wondering if this was a dream. You are perfectly fine, Captain. It is reality. It seems that we have underestimated His Highness. Aslan nodded and looked at the neatly arranged and stationed troops in front of him. A large number of knights appeared here to greet them. There were two obstacles that one had to face if they wanted to take control over the northern troops. The first obstacle was Prince Sean and the second was Axel's art. First, Prince Sean seemed to be on Alex's side, so the troops under Sean's command wouldn't pose much trouble and might have accepted Alex's authority so Axel could resist Alex's control. But to their surprise, as soon as they stepped out of the portal, they found Axel's art waiting for them and bowed his head as if he was serving his master. Aslan walked towards Axel with a frown and raised his eyebrows. How did you lose your hand, Axel? His words caught everyone's attention. Axel, who was heading to the capital, returned after losing his left hand, and no one knew exactly what had happened. Axel was sweating profusely as he felt a cold gaze from Catherine and said, I was attacked by some adversaries which cost me this. It's better than losing your life or other precious things. Yvonne snorted upon learning the true story. By the way, who are they? Said Aslan upon seeing three new faces in charge of the troops. Catherine followed Aslan's gaze and said, he's injured. Beside him is Joey and the one behind is Jeremy. The trio noticed everyone's gazes and tilted their heads. What the? Aslan was startled upon seeing them. Joey and Jeremy were at the early legendary rank. However, Hurt, contrary to everyone's wildest dream, was at the peak of the mythic rank. Monster. It's another monster. Hurt ignored Aslan, who was like a child in front of his eyes, and walked towards Catherine and Yvonne. It's a pleasure to see you all, Your Highness. I hope you didn't have any inconvenience during the journey, Hurt said politely. The journey was comfortable, Catherine muttered and looked around. I don't see Christina anywhere, and also, where's Athena? Lady Christina is in front while Lady Athena seemed too busy with some kind of runes. Hurt felt a little strange calling them lady instead of lady. However, he had no other choice since last time Alex brutally beat him up for calling them lady, which he doesn't know why. So taking precaution, he decided to address them as Highness. Do you know Alex's plans? Yvonne asked as Alex kept her in the dark. No. Hurt shook his head and spoke. We were asked to organize the troops as soon as possible and eliminate the traitors. Fortunately, with Duke Axel's support, we were able to carry things out quickly. As the discussions were escalating, Catherine and Yvonne had a bad feeling. At that moment, a strong pressure radiated from all around. The intense, chilling aura froze everyone and attracted their attention. Whoosh! With a bang, a man appeared in the sky carrying an unfathomable yet familiar aura to many. Dark hair floated against gravity, and as if it were a night itself, a dark, deathly aura emerged from his body with a bloody glow emerging from his eyes. He lowered himself and looked around. When Alex appeared before their eyes, they bowed their heads and waited for him to speak. Soldiers of the North, I thank you sincerely and from the bottom of my heart for protecting the North from those cruel invaders who wanted to cause chaos. Your sacrifice is what keeps other people safe. However, in this process, you have pushed us back too far. Let me ask you one thing, how long? Alex paused for a moment and observed everyone's expressions. Are we just going to sit back and watch as they carry out their atrocities? Tell me, how long are we going to allow them to do this? The soldiers' expressions turned solemn, and the thought of their lost comrade made their hearts boil. It's time for a change. It's time for them to know our power. It's time for you to know the power of the strongest empire that has ever existed in history, and it's time to have our revenge. Alex shouted, and his words echoed like thunder that was accompanied by the loud cry of the soldiers' screams. Revenge, revenge. I, Alex von Leonhardt, will guide you so that you can take revenge and quench your thirst with the blood of the bloody demons. Now move and trample the border. Do not fear the miasma, for the blessing of the goddess is upon you, Alex muttered and snapped his fingers. Huge golden circles spread across the sky one after another. Showers of holy water began to fall that seemed to exude strong holy powers. While the humans felt refreshed and alive, the miasma at the borders began to disperse. Suddenly, everything became chaotic. No one could hide the surprise on their face. Is this what Athena was busy with? Yvonne spoke with a puzzled expression. It seems so, Catherine nodded. Catalina, listen to me carefully. You and Christina will lead the troops from the front while Yvonne and Athena will seek the rear. Why me? Catherine shouted in a panicked tone, thinking of what she was going to do at the front. Strategists work from behind, don't they? Alex brought his face closer to Catherine and said, listen to me, Catherine. In this war we only have one strategy, which is to advance and kill. Leave the rest to me. Measures can be taken from the front as well. You speak as if you were going somewhere else. Why don't you fight at the front? Catherine asked. Alex nodded with a smile. I'm going to meet the elves. I'll finish the negotiation work today. How can it be so easy? Do you think it's easy to come to this conclusion quickly? Ha. Alex laughed and his figure began to float. You're misunderstanding something. I'm not going there to talk, I'm going there to subdue them. Alex's voice echoed as his figure disappeared. Aslan, hearing this, nearly fell on his butt. Do you want to turn the entire world upside down with your power? In the elf shrine, the elf king Hendel stood with a solemn expression. Beside him, the elf queen Irina tried to calm him down. We'll surely find a way. Hendel took Irina's hands and shook his head. Holy Penelope, is there no way to save the world tree? Saint Penelope opened her golden eyes and said, I can only stop the corruption. This is something beyond my powers. Holy power doesn't seem to have any effect on this. These were the same words she kept repeating no matter how much he questioned her. Is this the crisis the elder spoke of? He also asked me not to get into conflict with the chosen one. I don't know what he meant by that. I mean, why the fuck would we fight with a person who's going to help us? It's absurd. Hendel raised his head and looked at the gigantic tree that seemed to touch the sky and cover half of the elven land. Many leaves of the world tree have fallen and the branches have turned into dry twigs. Every leaf of the world tree is precious and could be used for various purposes. Now, seeing such valuable things rotting away made his heart ache. While he was lost in his thoughts, suddenly the entire forest trembled. Boom. Boom. The platform they were standing on began to shake. Honey, what happened? Irina asked with a frown. Hendel's face turned pale as a sheet of paper. I have to go. Someone has breached the barrier. What? Irina cried. Even Penelope's expression began to crumble. Is this the work of that creature? Are they finally going to make a direct move? Irina asked in a worried tone. I don't know, but I will make sure none of them leave alive, Hindle roared angrily and his figure disappeared. With a single step, he appeared on the outer periphery of the elves, and his eyes widened as he saw corpses lying everywhere and fire spreading wildly. And in the center of it all, there was a man with black hair holding a corpse. Seeing Hindle, a cruel smile formed on his lips, and throwing the dead elf aside, he leapt towards him. Chapter 539, Waging War. Brother, it seems the Knights of the Empire were up for something. They're gathering at the borders. Hagen ran along the stone wall with beads of sweat dripping down his forehead. He looked at Raghu, who was standing on the wall. Raghu, seeing Hagen's expression, sneered, "Oh. It seems the stupid humans have had enough. Don't worry. Send the order to transport our tribe's bows and arrows to the city walls. Put the best warriors on the walls. There are many tribes in the center of the demon continent overseeing the matter." Raghu was the chief of the Minotaur tribe and along with others was in charge of surveillance here. A small-sized tribe had around 3,000 demons and large-sized tribes had around 50,000 warriors, not taking into account the young ones. Unlike the human troops, which are mostly made up of men, the women and the demons can fight just as well as the men. Raghu, an elderly demon, walked up to the wall and spoke. Miasma will keep them at bay for now. So focus on defense first. We'll tire them out first, and when they're at their last straw, we'll attack with all our might and sweep away all the enemies. Yes, uncle. I'm thinking the same thing too. Let them taste the miasma of miasma. The elderly demon nodded and smiled as he saw that Raghu had calmed down. His fear that some of those passionate young men would attack the enemy camp was unfounded. As they stared at the dark mist, rain fell on them. At first they didn't think much of it, but after a few moments their bodies began to itch and burn. Something's wrong, Raghu said with a frown. Raghu, the old man shouted in panic as he looked ahead. The dark miasma slowly began to disperse, giving them a clear view of the front. Prepare for battle, Raghu shouted as he heard slight fluctuations. Thousands of archers knocked their arrows on their bows at the same time, fixing their gaze on the valley. The demons near the catapult waited for Raghu to pass on the order. Behind the walls were demons who seemed to be prepared for the bloody feast. They had vicious smiles before, but now they stared at the city walls with serious expressions. Hundreds of dragons, flying eagles, and griffins appeared in the demons' field of vision. They were like a black blur flying towards them. All of them were flying beasts of transcendent level or higher and could carry 2 people each. They possessed speed, agility, and strength that made them suitable for aerial attack. All of the knights were of legendary rank. Whether it was by swooping down or descending on enemy camps, they could deal significant damage. And with many mages among them, they could also protect themselves from enemy attacks. The leader of the flying squadron, Barnes, looked down with a serious expression and shouted, "Charge!" The soldiers began their swooping attacks and launched a spear downwards. The spear suddenly ignited and descended, leaving behind a trail of fire. "Go!" a furious howl thundered. Fireballs rained down on the city wall. The spear with the flaming tail that descended struck the walls and exploded in fire for the last time. Boom! 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 Thousands of spears fell from the ground and exploded against the city walls, disorganizing the demons on the walls and causing them to fall to the ground. In the blink of an eye, another imposing army appeared on the ground. Javelin team, Christina gave the order, and thousands of warriors with 3-meter-long javelins and sharp objects came to the front and began to salute the demon. The skies above the border were filled with a rain of javelins. Raghu panicked and shouted, "Deploy the formation and activate the barrier quickly. Fire the arrows and launch the catapults." 10 pillars shone on the walls and a barrier appeared, covering them. Raghu breathed a sigh of relief and thought that the time to counter had finally come. However, contrary to his thoughts, his eyes widened as he saw the javelins pierce through the barrier as if they had never existed. What the hell? Raghu jumped in shock as he saw the javelin hit the ground and detonate, killing a few demons. High-temperature flames spread everywhere and the walls began to burn as the javelins rained down on them. Christina stared at the scene, praising such a marvelous creation. The javelins had been imbued with explosives or gunpowder, and anti-magic ruins had been created at the tip that would allow it to pierce through any high-level barrier. The javelins flew through the air after being thrown and pierced through the barrier and dove deep into the walls, forming a beautiful parabola as they rained down towards the enemies. As a counterattack, just before the javelins could land and explode, a wall of ice appeared before them. Duck! 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 A series of noises occurred as ice shards due to the explosion were sent everywhere. The giant slab that appeared above the demons burst into sharp fragments that tore apart their skin and caused gruesome wounds. And the alternating expansion and condensation of the gas due to fire and ice sometimes intensified the explosion. Large cracks appeared on the walls as the attack from both sides continued. The demon archers were unable to pierce Kinley's defenses, while the mages were preoccupied with trying to maintain the barrier that didn't provide much defense. Bang! 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 Screams. Wailing. Screams of agony echoed everywhere. Dark smoke rose into the air as the demons were pushed back. The path leading to the bottom of the wall began to tremble and rise. It was evident that the magic casters wanted to either destroy the walls or draw a path to connect the top of the walls to provide a way for the cavalry to rush in and take down the enemies at the lowest possible cost. And it didn't take long for them to achieve this. The moment they broke through the defense of the wall, they knew that victory was guaranteed. Raghu, who rose from the dust, could watch in disbelief as Kinley's soldiers began to slaughter them like ants while trampling on their pride. Chapter 540, Healing the World Tree. Alex walked up the stairs leading to the raised platform built around the world tree. He inhaled deeply and placed his hand on the dark trunk of the tree. His eyes turned black and stars began to glow behind his back. His consciousness penetrated deep into the world tree. Traveling inside the world tree, Alex found a tainted woman with half of her body dressed in black and who seemed to be sleeping. Particles of green and gold light fluttered around trying to keep the darkness away. The lady who was half asleep opened her eyes and muttered in a weak voice. Warrior, Alex's figure materialized in a semi-corporeal form and asked, "Are you the spirit of the world tree?" The woman nodded weakly. "How did they do this to you?" "That? Someone who visited here planted the seed of darkness," she replied. Alex followed her gaze and saw a dark, burning flame that was devouring the vitality of the world tree and turning it into something sinister. Alex looked into her eyes filled with expectation and spoke with a smile. "Don't worry. It's very easy. This thing that's corroding you will be a source of my power." Alex muttered and waved his hand. The seed of darkness flew towards him and merged with him in the semi-corporeal state. Alex in the real world opened his eyes. His hand darkened and his stars began to shine brightly. He simply received a huge boost and his power soared. He could feel the barrier to unlock the 9 stars weakening, however he felt a suppression. It was as if the entire world was against him and trying to suppress him. "Damn you," Alex cursed as his powers began to stabilize and he was unable to unlock the 9 stars. The darkness in the world tree slowly began to absorb Alex and dry branches and leaves began to fall. The Elf King and the tribe elders looked at the scene in disbelief. "Oh my God, finally," they exclaimed in joy as they shed tears of happiness. "Holy," Penelope nodded and stepped forward. An otherworldly glow radiated from her body as if a sun had appeared beside her. With a blinding flash, the entire elven forest was covered in a brilliant light. Penelope did not hold back and used all of her divinity. The world tree shook as several branches began to sprout from the main trunk and leaves began to form. Alex, who was watching the scene, suddenly heard a voice. "Thank you, my child, for reviving the world tree." Alex snorted and spoke. "I went through a lot of trouble, but when I was about to break through, I was suppressed by the world." "What do you have to say? That? Did you forget that darkness is incompatible with this world? The creature of darkness also suffers from this suppression. You are a being of this world, so you do not feel much suppression. However, the stronger you become, the more suppression you will feel." "So, what about the creatures of darkness? How do they overcome this?" Alex asked. "They've been subjected to inhuman experiments, and those at the god stage could negate the effect of the suppression." "I see. Still, what about my mental damage?" Since I couldn't break through, my mind was left shocked and confused. You must compensate me for the mental damage. You're still as shameless as ever. The real shameless ones are all of you. How dare you accuse me of being shameless? What do you wish? Ask the elves to fight by your side. Not even the most powerful are exempt from it. Are you going to wage a full-blown war? You don't need to know, or perhaps you already know all of this. Alex broke off the communication and walked towards Hindle. "I've kept mine, so it's time to fulfill your promise, and yes, you can talk to the spirit of the world tree if you want." What? With a loud crash, the table shattered into pieces. Kinley declared a full-scale war against the demons. The Dark Elf King shouted angrily. "That bastard named Alex didn't come here to oversee things, so why did this happen?" Your Highness, let's talk about it later. Their troops have already taken 3 lines of defense. If they take one like this, we'll be the ones in trouble, a council member said. The demons still have their core members in the center of the northern continent, which is vast and barren. Kinley's troops surely won't march on the land of death, so there's a chance they'll turn their attention to us. Damn it, the Dark Elf King cursed angrily. Just when everything was going well. The world tree would soon be corrupted and the elves would succumb to the darkness and become like us. We would soon have our revenge, but this damn bug appears in our path. I heard that this power rivals the Holy Kingdom, so it must not be stopped from interfering. The Dark Elf pondered for a moment and said, he's the one behind all this. It seems that having obtained the power of the Saint Realm at a young age might have made him proud. Killing him will destroy Kinley's morale. Pass on my orders. All clans prepare for war. Send experts from the Supreme Realm and have them kill Alex and send support to keep the humans at bay. Let's kill the entire human army. The elves are busy repairing the world tree, so I'm sure they wouldn't make a move even if the situation outside was a mess. If they do make a move, ask our informants to send messages if the elves decide to move. Yes, Your Highness. We will carry out your orders faithfully. Everyone left except for the Dark Elf King, who stared at the ceiling blankly. Why did the situation change so quickly, and why did those Omen members disappear at a time like this? I hope they're not plotting something against us. Chapter 541, Intercepting the Dark Elves. Turning in the direction of the rumble, many demons guarding the fortress raised their heads only to see rocks and heavy chunks of ice raining down on them. Some demons instantly panicked and stumbled away in a cacophony of screams. The ice boulders were followed by trails of fire that exploded like dynamite and were then followed by a shower of magic spells that rained down on them without giving them a single moment to catch their breath. Boom, 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 boom. As if they were under heavy artillery and cannon attacks, the sound of the explosions overshadowed the painful screams. Demons died one after another, unable to do anything under the deadly assault. A demon attempting to force his way into the human army hadn't even taken a step when something struck the torso of the man right in front of him, and before he could react, what hit him exploded, showering everything with sharp shards. Since when did those puny humans develop such strange things? The weapon doesn't have a shred of magical energy, but it explodes with terrifying power. What the fuck is this? As agonized wails filled the air on Demon's side, Christina, who was leading the charge from the front, suddenly felt that something was wrong. She rolled her eyes as she scanned the battlefield and her expression twisted into a frown. She discovered that a few soldiers on her side were being beaten by an invisible force, and the number of wounded was slowly piling up on her sides. Catherine is leading the attack. It seems that I have to fight. Uncle Mag, Uncle Aslan, we have to move. The assassins have infiltrated, Christina muttered, and in one step her body disappeared, traveling hundreds of meters. Boom. Appearing before the troops, Christina swung her sword, causing a terrifying storm. The arrows coated in a dark aura heading towards them were deflected by the swing of Christina's sword. Boom. A dagger flew past the knights, grazing them and throwing them aside, piercing right through the neck of something invisible, which was followed by loud screams. With a slight distortion, a blurry image appeared and the figure fell dead to the ground. Mag-like lightning moved between the gaps of the fighting warriors, after which figures in dark veils began to fall to the ground one after another. The fallen figure had a stuporous expression, wondering what had hit them out of nowhere. Swish! Aslan rushed forward, stopped, and threw a spear with the momentum of his charge. The spear flew through the sky with a deafening roar, leaving behind aftershocks. Bam! The horrible force tore through the chest of a dark figure and, dragging him along, crushed him against one of the hills to the side. Then Aslan leaped and thrust his spear. With powerful pressure, his attack pierced the chest of the being that was hit. Some of Kinley's troops, oblivious to the enemy hiding in the darkness, jumped in surprise. When did this bastard sneak in? Where did they come from? Were they hiding in the demon city? The knights, catching his scent, began capturing dark elves and slaughtering them. Everyone be careful, the dark elves have infiltrated among us. Christina's voice echoed across the battlefield, warning everyone. A bright light erupted from her sword and expanded in a radius of 500 meters. The dark elves who were using their stealth ability to hide suddenly appeared, and the soldiers pounced on the hungry wolves. Some of them were captured and tortured so that they could reveal any hidden information they had. Unfortunately, they managed to obtain crucial information. Catherine, who was overseeing the matter, frowned. They will get into trouble if they don't act quickly. As the humans struggled to deal with the dark elves hiding among them, Catherine's voice echoed out. "We have the dark elf army marching towards us. The reported number seems to be around 100,000. I have sent some knights from the flying squadron to scout." Christina appeared in front of Catherine with a solemn look and listened to all the details carefully. "The ones sneaking in here are the elite forces sent to weaken their troops before the real one shows up. We need to send a small force to intercept them now. Until we conquer this demonic fortress, we can't split our forces, otherwise we'll play into their hands. The main forces are still a few kilometers away. We can ask our troops to trap them in the valley," Catherine suggested as she thought of possible countermeasures. "Your Highness," her attention turned to the voice. "Please let us deal with them," Ian said with a polite bow. Behind him stood Max, Ben, Antoine, and Albert with a smile. "Leave these children to me. I'll take care of them. Even if something unexpected happens, I can protect them." Hurt appeared behind. Everyone looked at Hurt skeptically and asked, "What do you mean by children?" Catherine shook her head with a smile. "Go and have fun. Retreat if you encounter any danger. Come with me. I'll teleport you there directly." Hurt appeared out of nowhere and offered his help. Hurt teleported to the edge of the cliff towards the east side of the battle. They stopped by a precipice and looked at the layout. Hurt made some plans and discussed something. The dark elves might have thought that they would occupy this area from this area that was above the ground of the battlefield. However, little did they know that these six had already laid siege as 40,000 troops marched towards them until they were kept busy. The dark elves with their agile movements marched rather quickly. It hadn't even been a few hours since they received the report, but they had already arrived at the battlefield due to their quick movements. Silence. Silence. The dark elf standing in front suddenly rubbed their palms together. "I'm cold." "Why is it suddenly cold?" "What are you talking about?" "I don't feel cold." The dark elf who was going to deny it stopped as he saw the faint white mist escaping from her lips. "How strange, it's cold. Is there going to be snowfall?" Calmly and serenely they looked up at the sky that was covered in dark clouds. "Maybe it's going to snow. If this happens, aren't we going to travel?" As a series of murmurs filtered through the troops, the cold began to increase and soon a freezing wind blew, blocking everyone's vision. "Everyone stop. Something's wrong," the dark elf commander said. The snow surrounding them had a bit of magic to it, unlike natural snowfall. The dark elf stopped and observed their surroundings, but they didn't know that this was the worst decision. The dark elves, who had a superior sense of hearing, picked up faint vibrations. "I can hear the sound of waves churning." Waves. Roth, who was surveying the terrain, frowned as he noticed something. They were now in a narrow valley between two cliffs surrounding them. Looking up, he could see a movement of snow. His eyes widened and he shouted, "Everyone run! Get away quickly! It's snowing!" His shouts echoed with the powdery snow, confusing everyone, but they soon discovered the reason. The cliff on both sides was loaded with snow that followed them. They will be trapped between the avalanche. Everyone could guess that the snow was made with magic and required a large amount of mana. Being trapped underneath is not deadly to them, nor does it pose any threat to them. However, it would slow them down and allow their enemies hiding here to defeat them. The only escape route they had was through the front. Without wasting any more time, they rushed forward in hopes of getting out of the arc of disaster. Zip, zapped. What they didn't know was that up front, they were going to be greeted by a thunderous welcome. Boom. Making the ground tremble, the body of a giant human soars into the sky. I wanted to do this. Ever since he saw that lightning bolt strike down from Alex, he always wanted to try it, but he didn't know how to do it until Alex granted him the technique. The clouds in the sky rumbled and spun in circles. The shadow of a figure holding a hammer appeared descending from the sky. Lightning begins to flash from his body. Huge bolts of lightning shot out, and just before he hit the ground, gigantic bolts of lightning struck down from the sky towards him. The dark elf screamed in terror, as if they've never seen or felt anything as horrifying as this. A man wielding nature's lightning bolt charges straight towards them, sending shivers down their spines. Lightning punishment. The lightning converged with Antoine's body, and before the horrified eyes of the dark elves, it crashed into them like a meteorite. Boo. Chapter 542, Challenging the Demon's Ultimate Power. Boo. Such was the destruction that even Antoine was sent flying by the impact and crashed into a rock, shattering it into pieces. Soon the dust and debris disappeared, leaving a cavity of about 300 meters. The snow along with the dirt in front seemed to evaporate into nothingness. The avalanche that buried the Dark Elves in the back somehow saved their lives from the explosion, but because snow is a good conductor of electricity, their body was in a state of spasms and paralyzed. Cough. Cough. Antoine spat out blood and fell on his side as he tried to get up. His face turned pale as a sheet of paper. His face was burnt and haggard. He clicked his tongue in annoyance. Just then, he heard a call behind him. Leave the rest and go to sleep. In your dreams, Antoine shouted and grabbed his hammer. Max appeared before the Dark Elves with a glowing axe in his hand. The Dark Elves were stunned. Seeing a thick, burly man like the previous one running towards them made them panic. One of them muttered as he tried to catch his breath. Some of them, who were in better shape, pulled out their daggers and braced themselves for impact. With a loud stomp, Max's figure shot like lightning across the sky and, tightly gripping his axe, he swung his axe like a wind fan. Whistle. Powerful bellows of wind were summoned, and a hurricane blew over them, followed by gigantic arcs of wind blades. A fissure erupted from the spot where Max landed, causing the enemies to lose their balance and then be sliced into pieces by the wind blades. Ian, with smooth and agile movements, went after them. Like a picturesque scene, several lines were drawn on the surface of the earth, and each of the lines signifies death with the falling of corpses. At the front, chaos reigned. The Dark Elves, whose number was close to 100,000, were dragged into a tug-of-war fight. The valley was narrow, so we couldn't take advantage of their numbers properly. It was wide enough for about 100 people to march at once, and the 100 Dark Elves who got the brunt of it were torn apart by the 3 who stood at the tip. While the Dark Elves were screaming in panic, calling for orders from the commander and the help of other strong warriors, however, a few hundred meters away from the place, several figures roared violently and tried to strike the empty spaces around them. All of them were of mythical rank and were in charge of the army. However, when the snow fell, they were teleported here by an external force and their movements were blocked. Space rumbled with their blows and cracks began to form on the surface of the sky, but every time the cracks formed, an icy whip would lash at them mercilessly. They glared at 2 people resentfully and shouted, "If you have the guts, take us out and fight fairly, cowardly bastard." Feigning ignorance, one of them spoke up. "Did you hear anything, Albert?" "No, it seems like some dogs are barking," Albert replied without singing. "Then you should teach them a lesson. Bad dogs are a menace to society," Hurt said with a sneer. Yes, many ice whips appeared, and with a wave of his hand, the Dark Elves who were locked in the space prison created by Hurt screamed while hurling all kinds of curses at them. "Sorry, you can scream all you want, but we can't let you." "Should we kill them?" Albert asked. "We can't. If I use any other spell now, the space prison will break, and if you attack them with everything you have, that will break the prison as well," Hurt replied. "So, do I have to waste my time with you and listen to their curses? You can go there and enjoy your daily dose of psychopathy." "Hurt. From what angle do I look like a psychopath to you?" Albert asked with a thick vein bulging above his head. "From all angles. Now go." Hurt spoke and waved his hand. "Are you sure?" Albert asked again to confirm. "Yes. No. Isn't it good?" The wounded expression paled and his figure quickly spun, causing mana to distort around him. Hurt and Albert's figure disappeared, and the place where they were just now was attacked, causing everything to be reduced to dust. Max, Ian and Antoine also disappeared in the midst of the fight. PFFTTT. Hurt spurted blood and his body fell to the ground on the other side of the human army. The other 4 fell on top of him and buried him. "What happened?" Albert asked with a shocked look. "Supreme. A supreme rancor had appeared. I was hit by the remnant of his energy." Hurt struggled to speak as blood poured from his lips. A strong pressure descended upon the human army, startling them. Christina's expression hardened upon seeing this. A bright light flashed beside her and Athena appeared beside Yvonne. "Christina, we are the only ones who can stop them," Athena said, and the white robe surrounding her changed and a holy armor enveloped her. "We don't stand a chance, Athena, we can only delay. However, if they seriously attack us, we will die," Christina said with a solemn expression. Athena looked at Catalina and Yvonne. "Do you two do what you have to do, and try to protect yourself. We'll stall the time for Alex to arrive. Also, try to push the army back, the shockwave may prove fatal to some," Athena spoke with a grave expression. The supreme rancor on the Dark Elf side stared at them. The Dark Elves who had been stopped earlier began to pour out incessantly. The pause in the attack allowed the demons to regroup. Kinley's army began to be surrounded. That wasn't the problem though, as they had the strength to counterattack and reverse the situation with their power. However, the presence of the Supreme Rancor made things difficult. With one strike from the Supreme Rancor, half of the army would be decimated. Therefore, no matter what happens, they can't allow the Supreme Rancor to strike first, otherwise, they must divert their attack. Christina felt like a path of death was suddenly opening up before her. She bit her lips to calm her pounding heart and tried to stay strong. She stared at Athena's calm expression and admired her firm attitude. There was not a trace of fear on her face. She took a deep breath and released her aura. Her body began to radiate the golden austerity. What a brave girl, you four surely have a temperament that justifies your appearance? Thank you for the compliment, sir, Athena said with a smile. Sir, can you turn a blind eye to the battle? This battle is just a child's game, and as an adult, I should not interfere with children's play. Everyone shuddered upon hearing Athena's tone. Ha 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 ha, I'm sorry, child. I can't, I need to kill all of you. However, if you surrender, I can spare your lives. Aren't you afraid that the treaty will be broken? Christina asked coldly. We are not afraid of that, as Alex said, the treaty is useless and is just a decoration. If you were here, he would have already cursed the person who, 7 generations ago, came up with the idea of the treaty, Yvonne said with a sigh. Since you won't give up, prepare for your death. The air seemed stagnant and the voice ceased for a moment. Do not fear. We have the blessing of the goddess, Athena shouted and stepped forward. For the glory of Kinley, Athena shouted and held her scepter in both hands, throwing it carelessly. For the glory of Kinley, the knights let out a cry of anger and launched attacks. Athena's body shot out like a beam of light towards the Supreme Rancor, who sneered as he watched her court death. Just as he raised his hand and was about to strike. Boom! At that moment, a thunderclap rang out from nowhere. A silver bolt of lightning streaked across the sky and struck the Supreme Rancor right in front of everyone. With a thunderous roar, the sky split apart and a bolt of lightning several kilometers long flashed past the Supreme Rancor, reducing him to ashes. As the dazzling light of the lightning faded, a sword appeared in the center of the struck area. A dark sword that seems to absorb light gives off a sense of danger that makes their backs shudder. As everyone exclaimed in shock and horror, a hoarse voice pierced through the sky. It seems the stage I've chosen is already set. Well, now let's begin the main show, shall we? This will be the true beginning of the massacre and also my first step towards revenge. With this, a bloody storm broke out before everyone's eyes, causing the sky to turn as red as blood itself. Chapter 543, Eliminating the Demons. Sean stretched his ear and stuck out his tongue, grimacing. His daughter, lying in the crib, laughed heartily, filling his heart with joy and contentment. Sean was having the time of his life. He no longer had to be tense. He could sleep as much as he wanted and eat freely without fear of being poisoned. He didn't have to worry about his daughter and wife being killed at someone's instigation. Although he hadn't let his guard down, Alex's rise had lifted that burden off of him. In a way, he was now a free man, and with Alex's rise to the throne, he could retire and live a good life. And as for Irvine and Shyan, they should be worried about Alex, not the other way around. Irvine had already been locked away after the Hex incident. Maybe she was planning something, but Alex might have already thought of a way to counteract it. Sean, who was enjoying a quiet moment, heard a knock on the door. Sean handed his daughter to the nanny and walked out only to see a trembling knight with a pale expression. Joy, what happened to you? Are we in trouble? No, Joy shook her head. Silence. Sean, who was about to take a breath of relief, nearly screamed when he heard Joy's last words. His Highness Alex had invaded the demon continent. PFFFFTTT. Irvine spat out tea and jumped out of his seat in horror and disbelief. Beside her, Shyan and her mother were lying on the bed. Although she had been healed, the impact of the blow was too much for her, causing her to lose consciousness over and over again. Shyan and Irvine, who were looking after her, received an urgent message that shook them deeply. Are you sure you received the right message? Did you mistake the demon invasion for Alex's invasion? Your Highness, we have checked thoroughly. Sir Alex has marched towards the demon land. Ha 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 ha, Shyan burst out laughing. This guy is good at counting deaths. He will surely die there. Shyan, who was laughing madly, stopped when she noticed two piercing gazes. How could I give birth to such an idiot? Shyan's mother said. Brother, do you understand how serious the situation is? Alex had marched with 1,000,000 troops. If he loses, the northern front will fall into the hands of the demon and Kinley will suffer a severe defeat. Even if we ascend the throne, We cannot control this situation. Biting her lips, she relayed some orders to the servants and made a call. As soon as the call was picked up, she shouted, "Brother Sean, what the hell is this? How can you help Alex with this?" "Irvine, listen to me carefully. I swear to God, I know nothing about this." Alex had spoken of the war, but in a different way. He said he would attack the Dark Elves and open a path into Elven territory, and after lying, they would put pressure on the demons by attacking at the borders. There was no talk of invading the demons. "I'm not a maniac to recklessly lend my 300,000 troops to be used in this manner, damn it," Irvine cursed. "Irvine, listen. Let's put our grievances aside. We need to call for emergencies and send reinforcements. Alex had already won a few cities. We need to back him up and ask him to retreat. This is the last time I agree to your suicidal plans." Irvine bit his lips and cut off the call in anger. While all of Kinley was in an uproar, a dazzling crimson light descended and spread everywhere. A moment later, a figure appeared in the sky, causing the entire world to shudder. Alex's eyes were filled with murderous intent, and his killing intent materialized to the point where people could feel themselves drenched in blood and standing on the bed of corpses. The dark elves and demons who had long lifespans and lived for centuries began to crawl in fear. Alex looked around and shouted, "There's no need to waste time on a minor skirmish. Let's decide the fate of the war now. Demon overlords and overlords, come out now and face me. We'll decide who the winner is today. I'll take you alone." Alex's words spread across the world, sending tremors through everyone who heard the description. Below him, the Kinley troops who were looking at him in reverence suddenly screamed and jumped in panic. "What the hell?" Aslam fell to the ground and wiped away his sweat. He'd gone mad. "Damn Alex. Did he know that you would one day kill me?" Hurt Kirsten already began to prepare a portal to flee. Catherine stumbled and felt the world spinning around her. "I thought I had a great plan, but what is this? Athena, do you know about this?" Catherine spoke and looked at Athena, who was standing with a blank expression. She seemed unfazed. However, when Christina walked up to her and poked her, they found her frozen like a statue. They both stared at each other and looked towards Yvonne, only to see her fainting due to shock. This is too much." Even Christina, who doesn't talk much, burst into tears. They raised their heads and looked at Alex, hoping he would know what she was doing. Alex waited for her response for a moment but got nothing, and her expression distorted. "You're still as firm as ever. Are you taking my threats lightly, or do you think I'm not strong enough? Since you fat sheep don't come out, I'll kill every pet you have." Alex's image appeared and right above the demon army. She extended her hand and a fire spear appeared in her hand. Die, Boo. A bolt of fire streaked through the demon army, creating a path of destruction as it left behind a floor of hot magma. The trail stretched for several kilometers long and 100 meters wide, obliterating everything in its path. Any demon that was hit by the attack was instantly vaporized. Everyone gaped at the wondrous sight of pure destruction and demons being annihilated. The dark elves felt chills and already wanted to run away. "You're not out yet," Alex shouted and punched his fist. Boo! Like a meteor, his fist slammed into the ground, creating shockwaves and explosions that swept everything away. The demons screamed miserably, cursing the lunatic who didn't have an ounce of honor. If all the major powers went mad like this, then no enemy army would survive. Boom! 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 The demons that had planted deep fears in the hearts of everyone in the world began to run for their lives. Enough! The fist that erupted from the demons dispersed and the figure of the green-haired demon appeared. The pressure of an overlord countered Alex's pressure and gave the demon a sliver of relief. "Boy, you're taking this too far. Beings like us don't fight back or interfere." Bang! Ares, the green-haired demon, tried to block the attack but was blasted a few hundred meters back. Alex's expression hardened and those dark eyes gave Ares the creeps. "You stingy son of a bitch. You used tricks and helped those morons kidnap my wife. Where were you at that time, you bastard? You're nothing but a cheap preacher of justice. Today, if I don't kill your kind and crush the demon lord, then I will commit suicide, reckless boy. Even though my great-grandson is older than you, you dare to talk to me like that? You talk too much." Alex interrupted and snapped his fingers. Solaris de Flare, a miniature sun, appeared above Alex and he smashed it into Ares, who charged at him with thunder flashing around his fist. Thunder fist, boo. The two powers collided with each other, creating a powerful clashing explosion in the air. The sky was covered by a crazily spreading cloud of flames which was followed by flickering, dark lightning bolts. Everyone within a 10,000-meter radius around both combatants was rendered helpless due to the overwhelming power of both attacks. While some expressions paled in fear, others had a tinge of appreciation in their eyes as this was their first time seeing a fight of this scale. Alex roared and thrust his attack at Ares. The power radiating from his fist was slowly dissipating. He gritted his teeth trying to exert more strength, but to his surprise, he was pushed back. How did he have so much power at such a young age? Is he the reincarnation of a great god, or is he God himself? Otherwise it's meaningless, or perhaps he's an experimental product. Ares, whose eyes still showed signs of reluctance, spurted out a mouthful of blood. After a minute of the bloody clash, a powerful explosion shook the world and Ares was torn to shreds due to the aftermath. His left side burst and burned into pieces, and he was thrown towards the ground with terrifying force. Before he could react, he felt someone forcefully grab him by the neck. Alex grabbed him by the hair and dragged him along. With just one step, he disappeared, dragging Ares with him. Using teleportation, he appeared directly above the magnificent structure of the demon's castle. Holding the nearly dead Ares like an object, he threw him towards the massive monolith and shouted, "Take your trash." Boom. Ares' body was thrown towards the monolith with great momentum even before he could reach it. Chapter 544, Facing the Demon King. Silence. Absolute silence reigned on the battlefield after Alex left. The remaining demons and the Dark Elf army stood there in a stupor, unable to understand what they were going to do now. They don't even know what was going on here and why they appeared there. Are they nothing more than cannon fodder? The human leading the army crushed even an overlord realm like an ant, so what can they do now? While the Dark Elves were stunned with frightened expressions thinking about the scene that had happened before them, they heard orders from above. Several Dark Elf figures appear in the air. Overlord of the Dark Elf side, Christina said in disbelief, and her face turned pale. Yvonne, who had just stood up and was rubbing her eyes wondering if she was in a dream, fell unconscious again upon seeing them. What now? Catherine asked with a frustrated expression. Where did Alex disappear to in the time of need? Are we going to die now? Catalina complained with wet eyes. Stop your actions. Do you really think Alex would leave us alone after what happened to Rydia? Athena said angrily. Although she was also puzzled by the situation, she believed in Alex and was sure that what happened to Rydia was not going to happen to them. Trust me. He surely has some plans. Athena tried to reassure everyone by showing a firm attitude. However, it could be seen that the hands holding the scepter were shaking. The Dark Elf Overlord asked his troops to attack and they will monitor the situation. Tisk. Tisk. Bullying Junior is not a good thing. Alex is a different case because he is only 22 years old, but all of you are old. A majestic voice appeared from a greenish portal that materialized out of nowhere. Hindle, accompanied by 5 experts from the Overlord realm, walked out from the place. Kinley troops, don't tie yourselves down, we will protect you. Athena, who knew about Hindle, bowed and asked, did Alex send you here? Yes, we made a deal. How come you are here? Don't you care about the World Tree? An Overlord from the Dark Elf side shouted. Hindle smiled and looked at him. Why don't you guess? Crazy. No, this was the craziest thing one had ever seen in their life. There are certain steps one must take to win the war. But Alex pounced on the Demon King in his lair. It was the most foolish decision one could make. Do you want to die? Agnes, sitting on the gigantic black throne, muttered with a look of surprise. Alex stared at the demon, who still had a calm expression. He had black hair and crimson horns protruding from the top of his head. On his back was a pair of red wings that spread slightly, showing his magnificence. An overwhelming power radiated from his body, which was enough for Alex to understand the gravity of the situation. Agnes, the Demon King, was at the peak of the Overlord realm. Still, so what? What are you looking at? Are you scared? Reckless. Agnes waved her hand and a shockwave of power crashed into Alex. Agnes thought Alex would be impressed, but to her surprise, he stood there motionless as if her powers had no effect on him. I understand the reason for your stupidity now. But do you think that much power is enough? I'll overlook this. Go back and hide in the hole you were crawling into earlier. Tell Kevin that I owe him a favor for showing you mercy. Alex looked up with a sigh. A feeling of unease began to surround him, giving every demon a sort of deja vu. Darkness enveloped Alex, causing Agnes' expression to falter. She stood up from the throne and pointed at Alex with trembling hands. You. Since when did you have the power of darkness? No more than that. Why do I feel restrained by it? Agnes said with a bewildered expression. Those who saw it are not alive, and those who are alive are afraid to speak. Alex waved her hand. Agnes felt chills and tried to launch a counterattack, but her attacks were neutralized and dark black chains around her appeared out of nowhere. Agnes roared and countless back chains emerged from the sky. Agnes pushed her aura to its maximum, causing some of the chains to break. The chains shot towards Alex. The center of the demon continent began to shake. The other overlords seemed to interfere, but Agnes stopped them all. "Stop, I'll deal with it," Agnes ordered, asking them to step aside. "I'll lock you in here and ask Kevin to pay for your sins," Alex sneered and brandished his sword. A moment later, darkness erupted, drawing a line across the surface, and he used it to cut through all the black chains as if they were made of butter. Agnes then fired dark orbs of energy at Alex, to which Alex simply swung his sword, cutting through Agnes' attack and nullifying them completely. Alex took a step, disappearing from where he was, and reappeared right in front of Agnes' face. Without wasting a second, Alex's fist struck Agnes' face again and again, not even giving her a chance to scream. Powerful blow. Alex's final blow, imbued with a condensed mass of darkness, slammed into her face and made it explode with a bang. Alex flew across the sky with his robes fluttering in the wind and shouted, "Come out, don't throw your puppets at me. Is the Demon King so afraid that he can't even step onto the battlefield out of fear? Or are you playing dead? Whatever it is, I don't care what you do, but let me tell you some facts. It's all pretty much useless now." Alex spoke in a low voice and pulled back his arms as if he was drawing a bow and aiming at the massive monolith and the Demon King's castle. A bow of darkness appeared along with an arrow. Mana began to distort around him. The area around him began to tremble. 10 rays of light shot into the sky and formed a barrier around the place. Agnes' animated figure looked at Alex with a solemn gaze and shouted with a voice that reeked of killing intent, condensing over the area. The thick, bloody aura erupted, causing dark, bloody lightning to flicker. Denial arrow. The moment he released the arrow, a deafening silence erupted around him. There were no sounds of fighting, no screams of pain, no cries of lamentation for miles around. Only absolute and complete silence that lasted for several seconds prevailed in the world until the arrow hit the target, causing the barrier to explode, shattering everything. Agnes, who feared the power of the arrow, attacked knowing that the barrier couldn't keep up with her. "Damn you!" Agnes screamed in pain and rage as she pushed herself back, and from the top of that place, her scream of hatred could be heard. Embedded in her chest was a dark arrow that deflected everything in its path and hit him directly, leaving him stupefied. He never expected that there was something like this that could negate something. The reason why Agnes was reluctant to come out wasn't because she was afraid of Alex, but because she was doing something important in the pocket dimension, but this arrow pierced through the dimension just to hide him. "I'll make you pay for this," Agnes shouted furiously. "You forced me to do this." A few seconds later, the space around the Demon King's castle began to distort. A powerful aura filled with intense killing intent and dark power caused the space around him to crack as if it was made of glass. Alex opened his palm, in which various masses of different energy began to dance: fire, water, air, earth, and lightning. A moment later, giant hands extended from within the crack. The space his hand touched crackled and disintegrated, widening the space and allowing him to appear. In the hallway, Agnes, body clad in armor, could be seen. Her hate-filled expression was fixed on Alex's small body, as if she was planning to tear him to pieces. However, before he could get out from the other side of the hallway, a ball the size of a soccer ball passed through the crack and hit him in the forehead. Rampage at the end. A second later, a powerful explosion erupted in Agnes' domain. "I thought about forgiving you before, but it seems you're determined to commit suicide." Agnes grabbed the air into a spear and threw it at Alex. Boom. The spear and the energy ball exploded, creating massive seismic explosions. Alex appeared through the veil of flames and punched Agnes, who also threw a fist. Both unleashed their power, causing space to tremble and crackle as many looked on in shock and fear, wondering what the outcome of such a devastating battle would be. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 545, Facing the Demon King 2. The entire area around the demon castle was gloomy and desolate. There wasn't a single seed of vegetation growing there. The demon castle's massive monolith is supported by auxiliary buildings that form an impenetrable fortress that would make things difficult for even an overlord realm expert. There was no need to worry about being attacked or invaded, as any army that marched on their lands would soon run out of supplies. The distance between the cities is vast and the terrain made transit difficult. One had to go through hell to enter here. That's why even if some cities and fortresses fall, Agnes isn't worried about it, as she could easily conquer them later. But who would think that this human, an insignificant human, would have the courage to look down on her and enter the tiger's den alone without any hint of fear? His very presence disgusted Agnes and made her feel as if her pride was being trampled on. All the respect and fear she had earned over the years had turned to dust because of this man. There was not a shred of fear or worry reflected in those eyes, rather they burned with animosity. "Are you ready to die?" Agnes' deadly voice fell upon Alex, who stared at him without any fear. Not allowing Alex to respond, Agnes moved. Alex never let his guard down, but Agnes' counterattack came fast, strong, and filled with immense anger. Before the cloud of dust could dissipate, a gigantic fist emerged from within it and struck Alex's body, sending him flying. Ald crashed into the deserted ground and fell several meters before coming to a complete stop. "That was a brutal, solid hit," Alex muttered without singing as he tried to get up from the dusty rocks shifting beneath him. Alex shrugged and stared at the towering giant that appeared before him from the cloud of dust. "What a fucking menacing look you have," Alex sneered at Agnes when he saw its fearsome appearance. "You talk too much," Agnes sneered as she unfurled her massive reptilian demonic wings behind her back. The massive wings cast a shadow over the place, enveloping it in silence. "Are you prepared to die?" "No." Alex shook his head and said, "You should look behind your back." Alex stretched out his arms and threw them at Agnes. Agnes snorted and was about to attack, watching Alex take her stance, when something hit the back of her head, forcing her face to plant into the ground, which sent waves of dust and rocks flying. "I warned you," Alex laughed, pulling his hand out of the dimensional rift Alex made by ripping the spaces and joining the two voids together. The crown on his head shattered due to the attack, and the surprise attack infuriated him. "Damn you," Agnes roared in anger. Standing up, she shot straight towards Alex like a bolt of lightning. Alex descended from the sky and changed his stance, kicking out and crushing his soles at Agnes' punch coming towards him. Different auras collided with each other, dyeing the sky in different colors. Boom! The void seems to break apart due to their collision. One after another, loud rumbles began to sound, followed by showers of lightning that fell here and there, turning the place into hell. Moving at a speed invisible to the naked eye, Alex and Agnes clashed several times in the air. Their images appear and disappear, leaving bubbles in the air that burst and explode into violent shockwaves. The entire demon continent began to tremble due to the fight. Cracks and fissures appeared beneath them as the force of destruction began to wreak havoc. Mountains and hills were pulverized and decimated, unable to withstand the ferocious shockwave. Tectonic plates collapsed, causing some dormant volcanoes to explode and spew magma and ash from the earth, warning of the calamity to come due to their fight. As the fight dragged on, Agnes began to grow agitated, beads of sweat forming on her head. "I have lived for 800 years. I have fought several times in my life and have gained much experience in battle, but this child, how? I feel as if I am fighting an ancient monster that has awakened from its slumber. Its eyes seem to see through everything and it counters attacks with ease. Now that I realize it, what is his rank? I can't sense his realm. Did he perhaps reach godhood? Because I have sensed demigods before, but I can't sense his limit." Agnes began to panic, and his breathing became labored. Alex began to suppress him and threw him around like a rag doll. Wounds of various sizes appeared all over Agnes' body while Alex seemed unharmed. That was when something fell on Alex and slammed him into the ground with his entire body, forming a huge crater. "Hurrah, Your Majesty, could you please let us fight?" With the declaration of 8 overlord auras trapped in Alex, he was attacked from all sides. Alex received a few hits as he was taken aback for a moment. Alex crashed to the ground and coughed up black blood. The combined power of 8 overlords was not something one could easily face. The situation was quite desperate, but at the same time Alex's sleeping heart began to pound with excitement. His eyes shone with an eternal coldness. "Oh my God. What is this? Are you bullying me? Shut up and die, you insolent human. After your death, we will ravage the human land and rule the entire world. You sure have some lofty and absurd dreams, Agnes." Alex chuckled and looked up at Agnes, who was staring at him with an inexplicable gaze. "This is no longer a dream. This is going to be reality. For that, you have to defeat me as well," Alex replied. "You can do your best. We will kill you, you idiot." An orange-haired demon spoke and laughed. His laughter irritated Alex for some reason. "Are you sure? Will you be able to handle it?" Alex asked, and his cheerful expression suddenly changed as if he had shifted gears and turned into something unknown. The demon lord's face, filled with confidence, began to crumble as something deep and dark seemed to be boiling within Alex. His eyes turned as black as an endless abyss, and a black star of terrifying light shot out from his back. The darkness is not an abysmal darkness that hauntingly strikes their hearts with fear and despondency, stimulating the depth of their hearts with ominousness. "Tell me, can you handle it, my animosity? Attack him now," Agnes shouted, and each of them pounced on Alex with all their might. A massive ball of energy began to expand around them, surrounding them with deadly power. Nova nuclear, with a brilliant light equivalent to that of the sun itself, an explosion of hundreds of atomic bombs exploding together swept through the surroundings, destroying everything that entered its radius. The amber of the crimson flame scorched the land. Lava took the place of the river, and many of those lava rivers poured their contents into the ocean filled with burning lava, which was taken and used as a purgatory. The scene is hellish and brutal, with no signs of living beings around, and at the center of that land stood a gigantic castle, burning fiercely with intense heat. Within it lies the throne of the person whose name is enough to strike fear into the hearts of people. For he is none other than Death, the king of hell, the devil. Crossing his legs, he took a glass filled with burning liquid from the hands of his servant. His dark, blood-stained gaze watched the events of the world with great excitement. "Finally something entertaining. I've been really bored here lately. Should I find the goddess of war and fighter?" If Alex heard this, he would surely call this guy a masochist. The devil, who was enjoying some pleasant scenes, suddenly frowned and waved his hand, asking his servant to return his glass. "Shut the hell up and hide." "Yes, your highness." The servant bowed his head and disappeared without saying anything else. "I wish I could see him a little more." Unfortunately, his words came to an abrupt halt when he saw 6 dark figures appear before him, led by a beautiful woman. "Your highness, devil, I hope you will forgive our intrusion. You sure have gained some courage," he snorted. "What do you want?" asked Devil. "Do you know very well what we want? Did you forget what happened last time?" "Hell, don't worry, we are fully prepared this time," said the lady and released her aura. "We want your life, devil. Your time has come to an end, true god." The devil frowned and chuckled. "Although I may not live past today, I will surely bring down some of you." With this terrifying pressure, he descended upon hell, after which a bloody fight ensued that heralded the coming of destruction. Chapter 546, Terrifying Battle. For a moment, everything was covered in intense flames. All noises ceased at the powerful sound of the sky rumbling, as if it was going to shatter. The phenomenon lasted for an instant, and when everything returned to normal, white flakes began to fall from the sky. Alex stood up, only to find himself standing in the endless side of snow covering the land. Alex scanned the surroundings and saw battered and blood-stained bodies slowly rising up and staring at him with hatred. It was then that he understood where he was. This place could be the edge of the northern continent, shrouded in darkness and snowfall. It was said to be the end of the world, but Alex never imagined the place to be as cold as the pole, because the world was flat, unlike his previous world. Before Alex could enjoy the scenery, the snow cloud dissipated and moved towards Alex. The momentum of the punch disappeared as it approached Alex. His image disappeared and he threw a punch at Agnes. Boom! Agnes's huge body was hit and sent flying. She crashed into the snow and fell several meters before stopping. "Attack him!" Agnes shouted, and rays of light flashed towards Alex. Alex had moved, and within a few seconds, she unleashed blows one after another. Alex launched simultaneous blows, so the power of them was not that great. A moment later, the demon overlords were sent flying, but many of them managed to stabilize them in the air. Fatal dreams. A sweet and pleasant voice was heard, and Alex was enveloped in a bright pink light. "Human, you killed my precious descendant. I will take revenge for her." Marries, the supreme succubus, shouted and released her charm, trying to trap Alex in her dream world and make him lower his guard. Marries smiled, luring Alex into a dream as he tried to see her inner soul. She suddenly frowned and stimulated the blood. PFFT. Her body collapsed on the ground and began to tremble in fear. Her scales went numb at the sight of the majestic figure sitting on the throne in a world filled with blood and corpses. The moment she looked at him, she could feel it. The terrifying power of the person that made one's scalp go numb just by looking at him. "What happened to her?" Agnes shouted with a worried look. He, who knew Marries' power more than anyone else, knew how terrifying her ability to charm was. No one could escape the dream realm until the soul power of the opposite side is far greater than hers. Agnes looked at Mary and suddenly felt a tingling sensation on his back. He, who had fought and traversed countless battlefields for the first time, felt fear. The fear of the death sickle placed on his neck beckoned him to come closer to her. Agnes turned her gaze to see a bloody power emanating from Alex. Agnes screamed in panic and attacked without holding back. Others followed the movement and launched their strongest move. Mana swirled and a hurricane began to sweep everything away. Alex, whose body erupted with murderous intent, drew his sword and launched attacks one after another. Piercing thrust. Abyssal slash. Heavy iron swordsmanship, first stance. Heavy iron swordsmanship, second stance. A moment later, powerful shockwaves erupted in the center of the land of frost. Dark clouds covered the skies, blocking out the sunlight as the world's greatest power fought Alex, destroying the land's topography. Bomb. 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 The space around them shattered and cracks like broken glass began to appear, forming dark spaces that sucked in everything in their path. The massive sea of flames and dust created due to the fight was sucked into the dimensional rift, making the area unstable. Boom. An Overlord Realm expert was shot like a bullet into the rift after being hit by Alex. He tried to protect himself from harm, but Alex appeared and cut off one of his arms, throwing him into the dimensional rift and repairing the space. Inez, who tried to protect her, was thrown away like a rag doll. Agnes groaned in pain as she twisted her dislocated shoulder and coughed out dark blood from her mouth. She stood up with blood staining her clothes and stared at her followers riddled with blood holes all over their bodies. One of them had his left shoulder shattered, while the other had his bones shattered from Alex's repeated attacks. In the end, all of them had been injured so badly that it took several years, probably more than a decade, to heal. A top powerhouse like them can't be healed simply by healing spells, although it can alleviate their condition a little, but they don't have any healers among them because healers have light attributes in contrast to them. While all of them had been beaten pathetically, the man instead had swallow-like wounds accompanied by a few scratches. Alex took a moment to catch his breath as he observed each of the Overlord's conditions. It was one of his most difficult battles. Although he wasn't at a disadvantage, he didn't have an overwhelming advantage either. The one who can hold on the longest will win the fight, and he might just do it. As both sides prepared to fight, they suddenly felt like something had changed. Alex's eyes widened as he sensed earth-shaking changes in the laws, and that was when the world trembled. It wasn't just one place but the entire realm. Alex turned her gaze and looked around to find something forcing her Ada to open up towards her. A massive amount of divinity seems to be colliding with each other. What's going on? Alex's heart skipped a beat as he saw the world tremble as if it was going to be destroyed. Damn it, he shouted and turned a blind eye towards the demon, his figure being thrown into the air. Chapter 547, The Descent of the Gods. Alex's body, which was about to be shot, suddenly froze. Nightshade, a sweet and pleasant voice echoed out in the vast place. As if willing to submit to her commands, day turned into night and darkness covered areas throughout the demon realm. A moment later, several tentacles of dark energy descended from the sky and merged together, beginning to attack Alex. The tentacles mercilessly lashed out at Alex, who seemed to stop resisting for a moment before bursting out with a loud scream. Who are you, and you dare to copy her appearance? Alex's eyes stared at her with intense killing intent. Seeing this, the woman laughed heartily and spoke with a giggle. You are not qualified to know my identity, and after that, why don't you try to guess? She then turned her gaze towards the Demon King and the other overlords crawling on the ground. Pathetic, you are a useless piece of shit. You can't even handle a single thing, he shouted, and then turned his attention to Alex and said, Today, I will show you the saddest moment of your life. The armies of both sides came to a standstill at the appearance of the Elven Overlord. The dark elves and demons could gnash their teeth in anger as they waited for Alex to be killed and slaughtered without mercy. However, contrary to their beliefs, the Overlord, who could see the faint traces of the battle between Alex and Demon Overlord, wiped the sweat from his forehead. Hindle gulped and muttered, Damn. This kid is dangerous. We have neglected him thinking that he had the power of a mid-level supreme, but he is a strong monster. This unbridled power at such a young age could bring disaster. Power needs to be refined, and as a person grows up, they understand their responsibilities, their reason for becoming stronger, and their own goals. The age of 20 is the stage where most people have a carefree attitude without a serious vision, and having power of this magnitude at such a young age can be dangerous to both the person and society. Although a deep silence persisted, it was occasionally interrupted by tremors and shaking in the ground. Catherine walked up to Hindle and asked curiously, "Your Highness, may I ask you something?" "You may do so, child." Catherine nodded and asked politely, "As you say, Alex had become ridiculously strong in such a short period of time, and the treaty prohibited anyone below the mythic rank from fighting below their realm, so I wonder how they didn't impose any penalties on Alex. From what Alex said, the treaty will be held in a month's time where they will restrict it through signing." Wait. Hindle rubbed his forehead and looked at Catherine with a shocked look. "Who told you that shit?" Hindle asked. "Alex," Catherine spoke up. "Who told him that?" Hindle asked, raising his eyebrows. "I think it's the Emperor," Catherine said as she took a step back and saw Hindle frown. Hindle's words caught everyone's attention and his words shocked them to their core. "It's nonsense. There was an emergency call and we wanted to sanction Alex as quickly as possible, but Kevin used the Vero power to hold us back for 2 months. We refused to agree, but that bastard threatened us with his power and even Marshal Saint decided to back Kevin." They stared at Hindle with dumbfounded expressions. Hindle, who was about to speak, was startled by a thunderous noise and looked up at the sky. His and everyone's eyes widened as they saw a huge crack appear above their heads. A burst of pressure erupted from the sky and the cracks expanded. The world began to tremble and the sky was set ablaze with a shower of lightning. 6 transformed dark figures appeared, crushing everyone beneath them. Hindle's expression paled and he tried to deny the pressure, but it was all in vain as he was unable to neutralize the pressure. Many spat out blood and fell to the ground unable to withstand the terrifying force. Hindle, whose consciousness was going blind, gritted his teeth and shouted, "Protector, come. This is no time to play hide and seek." The 6 dark figures looking down shifted their attention as they saw an old elf appear above the humans followed by other rays of light. "How did you get here, Dryard?" asked Maxie, the old elf, in disbelief. "I didn't know these people didn't let us old people sleep well." Zarkus appeared with an array of weapons behind him. "Dryard. Kajuru." Marcus looked at the red humanoid, the dragon, and an old hunchbacked dwarf with a giant hammer. "Holy Marshal, you're still the same," Kajuru said, raising the hammer. Dryard looked around and asked, "Where's that fake priest?" "I'm here, my friend. This damn bastard didn't let me finish my meal." "Can't you maintain the dignity of the Pope?" Marcus said with a glare. "What will I do with dignity? Dignity didn't get me here," Pope Isaiah said, and then, looking down, he waved his hand gently towards Athena and then looked up. "Dark phantoms. The bringer of darkness," Isaiah muttered with a solemn look. Wasting no time, the 5 of them charged in an attempt to contain them. "False priest, how did these appear here and the world isn't suppressing them?" Kajuru asked with a frown. "I don't know and I haven't gotten any oracles or been able to contact the goddess," Isaiah said and then added, "Don't you dare call me a false priest again." Athena looked at the sky in stupor. "Pope and Marshal Saint. Who are the others?" "They are the protectors of the world and will only move when the world faces trouble. Kajuru is the ancestor of the Dragon Clan, and Dryad is a dwarf protector and a legendary blacksmith. Most of the weapons used by Overlord and his superiors are his own. Maxi was the king of the elves 1,000 years ago. What is his strength and what is with that dark figure?" Yvonne asked, trying to calm her fear. "All of their strength lies in the demigod, which is the next stage after the Overlord realm. After the demigod is the pseudogod. A pseudogod is slightly different from a demigod in terms of their divinity and is said to be a pseudo-immortal who can live until killed, and the next stage is the true god, which is the realm of the gods for which one needs to establish their religion and gather the power of faith and must be worshipped by a large number of people who will mark them as the god of this world, since this is technically impossible. Most use the shortcut of obtaining God's blessing and take a step towards pseudo-God by obtaining divinity instead of the power of faith. Still, our demigod protectors are stronger because this fight is happening in our world under the eyes of the goddess." Athena and the others breathed heavily after hearing Hindle's explanation and looked up at the sky where the 5 protectors were fighting with the Dark Phantom's soldiers. As they faced each other, leaving a trail of fire behind them, something crashed into the ground and exploded, leaving behind a huge crater. The explosion stopped everyone from moving. Even the Dark Phantom soldiers stopped moving. When everyone tried to look at what was inside the crater, their hearts skipped a beat. Chapter 548, Death? Everyone's attention was drawn to the center of the crater. A trail of black smoke clouded everyone's vision and tension began to rise. The 5 protectors who emerged from their seclusion due to the world being threatened stood there in a state of stupor. Their faces were horrified, and not even in the wildest dream could they have imagined such a scenario. Let alone speak, their body restrained itself just by sensing the presence of the person behind the veil. When the screen of dust dispersed, a man with twisted limbs along with a bloody body riddled with holes due to multiple stab wounds lay on the ground in a pool of blood. The man was none other than Alex. Christina, Athena, Yvonne and Catherine felt their hearts clench and break as they saw Alex's pathetic state. However, it was not that which scared them, but that the person who stood over Alex treated him like a serval. "Sisters, aren't you going to greet me?" With a lewd and evil smile on her face, she swung her foot around, pressing Alex down, causing him to cough up blood. She then looked at Alex and spoke flirtatiously to him. "Husband, did you like my treatment, Ria?" Athena shrieked and her entire body trembled. "God? She's a true god," Marcus screamed in horror, unable to understand what was happening. He was watching the scene where Ria was taken by the supreme being of the Dark Realm, but since they posed no threat, he didn't make a move, nor did he imagine that his decision would harm him. What are the goddesses doing? How can they allow a true god to enter and descend here? "Damn it, we're screwed," Dryad shouted. "This isn't possible," Isay screamed. His eyes, which had always been full of hope, began to shake in fear. "Ria, what happened to you?" Catherine tried to keep her composure as she knew that Alex had a restoration spell that could bring him back from death, and she wondered if Alex was cooking something up. "Ria, I think they were controlling you. Make your way, Ria. You're going to kill him. Wasn't he the one you loved the most?" Catherine screamed. "Yes, Ria doesn't let those damn bastards control you," Yvonne added as she tried to hold back her tears. "Stop. She's not Ria, she only has her face," Alex stammered. Cough. Cough, Alex's stuttering voice echoed, filled with pain. "Ah. How did you know? Please tell me." The woman gave a wicked smile and reached out. Her hands dug into Alex's chest and grabbed his heart with nails, digging deep into his heart. Alex let out a painful moan that left his wives dumbfounded, as they had never seen him scream in pain no matter the circumstances. "Please forgive him," Athena screams desperately. "We will do anything you say, so please, then beg. Bow down to me and beg for his life and I will forgive him." She smiled and looked at the 4 women. "I heard that you are the daughter of the goddess and that you all have your own pride. I want to see it crumble. I want to see it fall. Holy, bow down to me and hit your head on the ground." "No, don't do that," Isay screamed, trying to help Athena, who he and many others had personally groomed. How can he let a girl who is like his own daughter bow down to someone evil? Can he not let her kneel down to anyone? He tried to interfere, but his body was held back by an unknown force. "Did I allow you to speak?" A cold, sharp voice rang out and the Pope's body froze. "Bug, know your place." With a wave of her hand, the Pope was sent flying to the ground, dripping with blood. Don't listen to her," Athena gritted her teeth and looked at the others. Christina didn't even beg for her own life when she was caught up in the trial, but now she couldn't think of what would happen if she didn't bow down. "Is there no one who can defeat her?" Catherine asked, biting her lips to the point that blood began to flow out. "She's the real god." "I don't know," thud. Before he could finish his sentence, they heard a loud sound and looked to the side only to find Yvonne kneeling on the ground with a pale expression. Her face was pale as a sheet of paper and her body was shaking crazily as if she had seen a ghost. "Yvonne," the 3 of them cried out in shock, because out of 5 of them, Yvonne is the proudest of all. She didn't even acknowledge Alex, and even though their relationship improved, she didn't budge an inch from her resolve. The 3 of them sometimes even wondered if Yvonne would ever completely submit to Alex, or if Alex's marriage with her would remain political and loveless. So seeing her breakdown was so disheartening that they couldn't even describe it in words. They were shocked and bewildered at the same time. Yvonne slapped her head and spoke loudly. There was no trace of pride in those eyes. Except for a haunting fear and pain, her coldness and pride had been torn down. "I know that I have always been a bitch and that I have tried to stay away from him, curse him and belittle him. I may not have been a good girl or ever reciprocated my feelings for him sincerely. Maybe it was my vain arrogance or my vain pride that prevented me from submitting to him. I grew up in a rich family and always looked down on the world. I believed in wealth, that it could buy anyone. I believe in my eyes to see fortune and use it to manipulate others, and I always thought that being with Alex was only for mutual benefit, but seeing him like this, my heart bursts into pieces." Tears began to slide down her cheeks and Yvonne's voice became sleepy. I now realize that he has become an inseparable part of my life. The one who makes me feel alive and makes me feel like a complete woman. I want to live with him, so please don't take him away from me. Following Yvonne, the other three knelt down and slammed their heads against the ground begging for Alex. Blood dripped from their foreheads and the tears falling from their eyes wet the barren ground. Everyone there looked at the scene with indescribable expressions. These four had always been considered goddesses in their hearts, and seeing them collapse was not something they wished for. Fate was cruel to them. What could they do in front of a true god who is equal to the goddesses of the world? PFTTTTT, a mocking laugh rang out which broke the tense atmosphere, causing the four of them to look at her with bewildered expressions. Ha 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 ha. That's so funny. I've never laughed so hard. I mean, how can you be so naive? Did you take my word for it? Oh God. I'm dying of laughter. What do you mean? Athena's eyes trembled as a bad feeling welled up in her heart. I'm serious. The woman smiled and squeezed his hand, making a popping sound. Alex's eyes sunken and blood poured out of his lips, carrying pieces of broken internal organs. No. The four of them screamed and jumped at her. Take him away. He's going to die now. As if he was a piece of shit, she threw Alex's body towards the four of them. Alex, speak, speak. They caught Alex and Athena immediately tried to heal him, but her effort was in vain. 5, I need 5. Alex, who wanted to speak, coughed up blood and his breathing stopped and his eyes sank. The heads of Alex's wives went blank and their bodies went cold. Fear, sadness, despair and anger clouded their minds. Time seems to stop for a moment and then the bestial cry of hatred resounds. I will kill you, Athena roared and her body burst into a bright light. Yvonne, Catherine and Christina couldn't process what was happening and thought of only one thing: revenge. Revenge. Kill. Kill. Revenge. 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 It was then that they felt something disintegrate. Something that had been sealed, something that had been dormant in them. It erupted in a dazzling manner, with a terrifying force that made the world tremble. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.